Let's see what happens. Let's see if this is working. Um, we're live. Um, I got. I've got to figure out how to do all this stuff again. Let's see. Let's mute that so it doesn't feed back endlessly. Let's see. Wow, Restream is broken. Restream. Wow, Facebook, what the fuck's wrong with you? Someone might be there on YouTube though. Let me check. Are you who's watching on YouTube? And what I would have to do is shut off the feedback. There we go. Get rid of that. Okay, so now you cannot hear feedback. Me. There we go. Get rid of that. Okay, so now you cannot Safari. Okay, great. Feedback. Me. All right, let's try this. Man, get rid of that. Okay, so now you can. Restream is truly broken. Okay, great. Feedback. Right, let's try this. Man, get rid of that. Okay, so now you can. Restream is truly broken. Okay, great. Feedback. Right, let's try this. Man, get rid of that. Okay, so now you can. Restream is truly broken. Okay, great. Feedback. Right, let's try this. Man, get rid of that. Okay, so now you can. Restream is truly broken. Okay, great. Feedback. Right, let's try this. Man, get rid of that. Okay, so now you can. Restream is truly broken. Okay, great. Feedback. Right, let's try this. Man, get rid of that. Okay, so now you can. Restream is truly broken. Okay, great. Feedback. Right, let's try this. Man, get rid of that. Okay, so now you can. Restream is truly broken. Okay, great. Feedback. Right, let's try this. Man, get rid of that. Okay, so now you can. Restream is truly broken. Okay, great. Feedback. Right, let's try this. Man, get rid of that. Okay, so now you can. Restream is truly broken. Okay, great. Feedback. Right, let's try this. Man, get rid of that. Okay, so now you can. Restream is truly broken. Okay, great. Feedback. Right, let's try this. Man, get rid of that. Okay, so now you can. Restream is truly broken. Okay, great. Feedback. Right, let's try this. Man, get rid of that. Okay, so now you can. Restream is truly broken. Okay, great. Feedback. Right, let's try this. Man, get rid of that. Okay, so now you can. Restream is truly broken. Okay, great. Feedback. Right, let's try this. Man, get rid of that. Okay, so now you can. Restream is truly broken. All right. I'm gonna just get rid of this page because that is causing a feedback loop. So let's cancel that. Let's see what happens. All right. I'm on the main page here. I didn't announce this, so let's see who randomly finds out. Either way, you know, this is good because it's going to be practice for me to understand how everything works again. Let's mute that. And works again. Let's mute that. And okay. So what I do need to do is get my YouTube live, because a bunch of you all show up on YouTube. It's really wonderful. And get my YouTube live, because a bunch of you all show up. There we go. It is no longer full screen, so I can see your comments on YouTube. Awesome. Mighty Slim is the first person in the room. Mighty Slim, how are you? Welcome back, Dre. Lots to discuss. You're ready. All right, bro. I will make sure I'll make sure I monitor the YouTube stream, my brother. Good to see you, man. It's good to be back, but good to see you. You know, I'm in a daze a little bit. I'm a little. I'll use the word exhausted. You know, I feel good, but deep inside, you know, this touring is about deep cellular damage. It's one of the simultaneously most wonderful, amazing careers, if you choose and if it resonates with you. I've chosen it, and I'm celebrating 30 years on the road. You know, how's my volume? Celine, how are you? Mark Lorano, is my vocal volume okay? I'm going to turn that up a little bit. It's always low, but I love it. I'm, you know, my biology and my spiritual reality and my interaction with consensus reality, all these things I think about this a lot. They line up with the idea of touring. I do love being in a different place, different countries, different continents, learning, talking to people, interacting, seeing sights. Wow, I do. And there's a lot we can talk about there, but the downside, it's fucking exhausting. it's 15-hour days, 14 or 15-hour days. And as we did on this tour, there's often 4, 5, 6 in a row. And it's great. No complaints. These are not complaints. I'm just saying that it's not for everyone. You have to be a little batshit crazy. And Frank Zappa always said, touring will make you crazy. As he toured a lot, he was one of the people that set the template, for just endlessly being out there for, 6, 8, 10 months a year. So, so I have, today I thought I'd jump on. I almost didn't, because I'm tired. I should be sleeping, taking care of my neurons. But I thought, it's good. This is a good meditation. It's good mentally, therapeutically for me. And, and I love talking, interacting with y'all on the interwebs. So thanks for being here. So Mighty Slim, you fire away on YouTube with your right-wing talking points, because I'm ready to hear those. I need to see some new ones. And we'll just have some fun. I'm going to talk today about, I always do a little overview of what I thought I would talk about. A couple news items, a couple cool things happened in veg news in the past month, because it was Veganuary, of course, when I left. I left home on the 30th of January, and all kinds of cool stuff happened. That's one area I always touch on. Number 2, though, and the main thing I'm going to talk about today, I'll take some questions, and I'll share some memories, and I have some pictures of being on tour. So that's kind of the main thing I'm going to talk about, and the interface of that is what it's like being plant-based out on tour. And I had a friend, one of my dear friends and one of my patrons on Patreon, which I'll remind people I've been doing that. Bob Gluck, how are you, bro? We should catch up soon. Hope to talk soon. Yes, we will. But one of the things a friend of mine on my Patreon said to me, hey, it must be difficult. I'm forgetting the exact question, but it was kind of, how difficult is it? It was a question. He didn't say. He said, how difficult is it to eat vegetarian or vegan or plant-based on the road? That must be. And I said to him, great question. I said, I don't talk about this enough. But I love talking about it. It's one of the teachable areas. And sorry, I'm talking and typing at the same time. Let me just do this. I'm putting my Patreon link in the chat. So, but one of the things I talk about from time to time, and I've talked about it for 30 years now, is what it's like to travel and eat plant-based, what it's like to be in different states, cities, countries. And this person asked me, and I said, well, perfect timing. I'm about to go online and have a chat. And let me say, overall, I'm celebrating 30 years of touring. It was January of 1992. I had been a gigging musician for 1984, for about 8 years that time, 7 or 8 years by the time this happened. But just gigging around New Jersey where I lived. And, I was going to Rutgers when I started playing anything. When I started playing music instruments. I was actually at Middlesex County College and then Rutgers, mid-'80s. About 18 when I started playing, which is late. But anyway, I played around about New Jersey, and I think I had maybe done a gig in New York by then. Yeah. Definitely had played New York a couple times. CBGB's and the Pyramid Club, and I might have played Wetlands by 1992. The Knitting Factory, somewhere in there. So I played around New York, but Philadelphia probably. But that was it. Hadn't really toured at all. These are all gigs where you leave your home and come back. So early in 1992, I toured with the Nick Clemens Band, which is the son of big man Clarence Clemens, and from East Street Band, Bruce Springsteen, and growing up in Central Jersey, that's where all those folks were, and I grew up 5 miles from Springsteen's house. We would, it was one of the first things I knew about when I moved there in 1978 from Brooklyn, being on the school bus or something, and someone saying, Springsteen lives down that road a mile, So I grew up with his ethos and his vibe around Monmouth County, and so all the band members, you would see them at the Stone Pony or different clubs and shops. So I knew that everyone was around. So I along that line, met Nick Clemens through some friends, musician friends, and he was putting together a band in late '91. I joined the band playing bass, which I played a lot of bass at that point. I still play a little, but I played a lot of bass then. I was in 3 different bands on bass, a band called Leaves, Birds, and Grapes, which was awesome, kind of power pop, new wave stuff. Really good songwriting. I look back, this guy Bob was a brilliant songwriter. I was in my band Rhythm Method. I'd play bass on about 4 songs. And then I was in a really great band called the False Virgins, or just False Virgins, that I played on their 1991 or 92 album called Infernal Doll. And that's on Spotify. If you punch in False Virgins, Infernal Doll, I'm on that album. Awesome album, I think, looking back. Great songwriting again. This guy, David Aaron Clark, who passed away, he was a poet, a writer, an author, editor of Screw Magazine and a couple other magazines. So I played bass a lot, so here comes this Nick Clemens tour, and I'm in this band. And so I'm saying this to just tell you there is relevance to this spew, is that 30 years ago I went on this tour with this guy, Nick Clemens, and my buddy Bob Ramos on percussion, and a bunch of people I just met. The manager I knew, a guy named Andrew Schumann, who brought me into the band. And I bring this up to say that in January of 1992, we got into a dilapidated short buses, they call it, right? The smaller school buses, the ones with, 10 rows instead of 30 or whatever. Someone bought one used, and we fucking got in this thing. I can't believe we're alive because we some of the seats were taken out, so we slept on the floor in sleeping bags. The gear was improperly tied down with like netting and all this bullshit. I mean, at any point we could have, braked too hard on a bass cabinet, could have crushed someone's skull or whatever. But we made it, and the point is that was my first time leaving home for an extended period and having to think about, well, how do you eat? How do you eat plant-based? At that point, I had been completely vegetarian for 7 or 8 years. And I can't remember if I was vegan yet, but but right on the fringe there. Maybe I was. I can't remember. I think I was. But so I left my apartment, my house that I rented with a couple of friends, and I left. I didn't know what to do. It was 1992, and I just had not traveled extensively. So I remember I baked. I baked about I don't know. Let's call it 20 potatoes, 2 dozen potatoes. I just carefully baked some potatoes, wrapped them in foil, knowing that that lasts pretty long, and at least you have a couple cooked potatoes. So I baked these potatoes, and I had stuff like Cliff Bars, and I remember I had these packets, those little packets of oatmeal that you have. I had some of that oatmeal, so I had a lot of stuff where you just needed hot water. I remember that, and it was like going camping, which I still approach going on tour to this day, like going camping, which I haven't camped in decades, but I love it. So I took oatmeal. I remember packets of miso soup. So again, my philosophy was I'll have a mug, I'll have hot water. What do we do? So I didn't drink coffee at that time. I started drinking coffee like less than a decade ago. It's interesting. I'm 57 and I love coffee. Just had some earlier. Love it. Love espresso. Love coffee. I also drink a lot of tea. I love tea. I love black tea, green tea, herbal tea sometimes, but I like the caffeine. I like yerba mate. Anyway, so I'm on this tour. So it was potatoes, miso soup mix, oatmeal mix, Cliff Bars. At that time, Cliff Bar was kind of one of the only really, really clean, and we use that term clean a lot, talking about natural foods, and it's a pretty fungible word. I mean, but it I think you generally know what it means. It means stands up to the test, that all the ingredients are real, they're actual things, and the more they can be things that you could go to a supermarket and buy, the better the product is in terms of its design. But it's also got to taste good. and so Cliff Bars are one of the first things that tasted great and were super good on the ingredients. It's oats and raisins and brown rice syrup, and they have different flavors. Some have coconut, I guess, and some have walnuts or peanuts or peanut butter. So Cliff Bars were and are great, but they were pretty new at that point. Maybe brand new. I think they had 3 flavors or something, 2 flavors. So I remember I just had a few things and I went on tour. So I'm going to jump from there to 2022 and what it was like being on this tour right here. Very happy to have some new tour swag. And I just came home from this tour. My second tour with Pat Metheny and his trio. There we go. And I encourage you to go to patmetheny.com because there's all kinds of shows coming up in the USA in the fall and different parts of the world. And so we did that. But I'll talk a little bit about food on the road, eating on the road. I'm delighted to talk about it. Okay, I'll shut up and see if there's any questions. Let's see. Mighty Slim says, he's pulling it over to Ukraine. I'll come back to Ukraine. But anyone wants to enjoy and engage the Mighty Slim, go over to the YouTube channel. I'm pissed off again today at Restream, the system I use. Actually, no. I'm pissed at Facebook because they always keep changing their protocol so that it's tough to use third-party restreaming software, and you have to keep changing shit. So I'd love to be able to do some screen sharing and show you some pictures today, but fuck you, Facebook, on that for making it difficult. Those of you on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter will see my screen shares and you'll see my pictures, but I think I'll just hold them up to the camera for the YouTube people. Anyway, Howard Stern. Howard Stern gets a pass. Tell me where Howard Stern was racist, because that's a concern. Of course, most people's quick response would be his partner sitting to his side for almost 40 years is a black woman. So, talk to me. What did Howard Stern say was racist that got past Robin Quivers, who calls that shit out? But I know that you're sometimes being theatrical there. Then that guy is the only leader who Putin didn't attack. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to come back to the Ukraine stuff. I don't want to jump into it yet, but I will say that yes, the attack on Ukraine is horrible. I have Ukrainian friends. Uh, my other half has Ukrainian ancestry, and I have friends, and I have musical colleagues. I have gigs that I've done in the past at Ukrainian events and things. And so my heart goes out. My heart goes out to anyone that's bombed. I mean, I hated it when Syria was being bombed, when, of course, the Gulf War in Iraq and was being bombed, and I hate when Lebanon and Israel are lobbing bombs. I hate bombs. I hate whatever Eritrea and Ethiopia. Just I'm anti-war. Sorry, and so it's heartbreaking. It's especially heartbreaking in the 21st century to be bombing civilians, no matter who's doing it. What the fuck? You know, you have some dispute on the government level. How is blowing up someone's grandparents in a 20-story building actually achieving that? So it's very heartbreaking. That said, in response to that there wasn't an attack during the clown show for 4 years. There wasn't, but since 2008 or so, no, since 2014 or so, Putin's been working on doing this, and tens of thousands of people have died over that 14 years. A couple million displaced from these areas that have been declared, separatist. So there's a lot of death that's happened, and a lot of just a slow grind of bullshit. Anyway, I'm going to come back to that later. I want to talk about food. So there's a video circulating on a race game. Okay, yeah. Give me a link to that skit. It's Mighty Slim, and I'd love to talk about it. All right, let's say hello. Celine, Mark, hello. Way Papa Muse, good to see you, bro. Let's catch up soon. I think I sent you a couple responses to some stuff. We're always having an ongoing discussion. Way Papa Muse and I about this pandemic we got, and we talk about how to deal with some of our friends, our musician friends, people who just have a different view. What's interesting is the clock runs out. Here we are, February 28th. I don't have a third eye. You don't have a third eye. The vast, overwhelming majority of us know people that are vaccinated that have caught it. I know tons of people that have caught it. And guess how science works? Exactly as predicted. I'm going to say I know 40 or 50 people that have caught it, something like that. And there's maybe, of those, 2 of them had like a pretty bad 4 or 5 days. And they were okay. They lived. But the other 47, and I'm talking work colleagues, I'm talking people in the industry that are reported back to me, I'm talking personal friends, I'm talking family member here and there. And everyone's vaxxed, and they get it, and they have any mix of a couple of days of sniffles, some headaches, a little fluish feeling for a day, extra tired. Different people have different symptoms based on all kinds of factors, which is exactly what the science said. But sadly, during that same period, I've heard of many people unvaccinated that die when they get it. I don't know what else to say. At some point, though, month after month of that may have some people with alternate views adjust their views, but it probably won't. So just heard that a truck driver of a very prominent band that I know a bunch of people, they just got off tour. The truck driver was an anti-vaxxer and wasn't into the whole thing. He just died. He got COVID and died within a short period of time. This guy from Kiss, the guitar tech, turned out he faked his, right? This story's all over the place. Rolling Stone did a big report on it. He got it and died. So it's again, just kind of sidebarring that comment. We'll talk about that later, but just acknowledging some of the things that are brought up, or some of the people that are in the chat that remind me of previous chats. Good to see you, though. Frank Bellina, what's up, my bro? I'm pretty dehydrated. Excuse me as I get a little, what is this? Beach plum liqueur. It's that, sparkling water. Excuse me. Bubbly. So Scott Fisher, what's up, bro? Scott is stuck in meetings, but we'll try to join in. Cool. Nice hoodie, thank you. I love it. It's brand new. It's 2 days old. Bob Gluck, okay, packing your suitcase. Let's go back to food and touring. Thank you, Bob. Packing your suitcase with instant soups. Yeah, exactly. There's so many now today. But you know what's funny? And I'll segue into this. I don't carry that much. I used to carry all kinds of stuff, nuts and you know some baked tofu for the first couple of days, and yeah, soup packets and uh, uh, man, all kinds of stuff. And it's gotten to where I guess I'm also working at the level where there's a really good rider and there's a really good, even the level of my own band, my little piddly little band called Project Object. We do Zappa music. We were even at the level where on the rider you could say, uh, um, water, a case of beer, something like that. But you can also say 2 packets of whole wheat pita, 3 containers of hummus, chips, salsa. If the place has food, 1 meal per band member. We got to that point, and there's vegetarian options everywhere now. It's really fantastic. So I slowly took less and less on the road because you just realized, what the fuck? My suitcase is overweight here with walnuts and baked tofu and bottles of spirulina and soup mix and blah, all this stuff. Great stuff. But once you get to the point where let them have it, backstage, let them provide it as part of the tour budget. And that's awesome. It's really been incredible for decades now that I've been touring. Sabina, how are you, my dear friend? Sabina, hey, look at the schedule, patmetheny.com, and make sure that you can come to a show. I'd love to see you, and you'd love this show, too. So check it out. Headed to Germany in, I don't know, May or something. We're there, April or May. So check that out. Tiffany McMahon, how are you, my friend? And thank you for the belated earthly anniversary. Yes, thank you. Sabina, okay, here we go. Some science. Sabina caught it. Though you were boosted, yeah, because they said a percentage of people will catch it no matter what. So that's all normal. But you work with small kids in a shelter. There you go. So you had many vectors coming at you. The kids have been positive, and you can't make a 3-year-old wear a mask. Exactly. 3-year-olds also have an incredible immune system that's different to ours. It's still developing, and if they've been not sheltered from germs like a lot of modern parents do, then they have should have a good, robust immune system. Again, I'm talking about a 3-year-old that's on a pretty good diet, that their parents or parent lets them be exposed to some germs. They fall in the dirt once in a while. They'll eat a bug. They'll sneeze on another kid. That's normal. And that's the stuff that's alarming, that so many humans, helicopter parents as they call it, think that you can raise your child in a bubble. That's problematic. And that actually speaks to some of our larger problems with immunity that are going on. But anyway, Sabina, thanks for that amazingly detailed story. Thank you. And people should read this and learn from it. You're around small kids, so a lot of vectors. You're right. You can't make a 3-year-old wear a mask. And as they loved there, of course, we cuddled. Yeah. Took you 5 days to get it, and your first day of negative. Great. Thank you for that. And thank you for being part of the overwhelming, staggering, just clear math that people that are vaccinated have a massively more chance of safety. I hate it. I hate that that's true. But and everything's percentages. But there we have it. Alan Gowa, what's up, my dear friend? How are you, bro? Good to see you. And I'm going to talk and show some pictures today from the tour. And Jerome Parker Wells, my dear friend, good to see you too. And Sabina, you'll be in Leipzig. Okay, great. Bitte, meine Damen. Guten Tag. I got to practice my German. That's the thing. I got to learn 4 sentences in about 6 languages so I can order food and ask if there's meat in something, and the basics. Good to see so many music lovers and music friends, musicians. Alan, wow, from Guitar Weirdo, one of my Guitar Weirdo mentors, one of my biggest ones. from one weirdo to another, let me say, and we should catch up on a call, what a month this has been. And I've said it before. I'm so fortunate. I'm filled with gratitude. I really am. It's been hard work. It's been a lot of 15-hour days for months. That's what you do in this stupid career that I've picked. And I say it with quotes. I love it. But from some metrics of responsible living, it's kind of stupid. But I'll never change. I love it. But I've been fortunate. I really have. I really give thanks to have worked with some of the people that I was listening to as a teenager. I'm not going to go through the whole list. People can go to my website. But a couple of the key ones, to have worked early on in my career with Al Di Meola, and to sit there and watch that guy warm up in a hotel room, at a hotel, at an airport gate. He never didn't have the guitar. Backstage, on the bus, to be around that and to see that firepower as someone who grew up for a few years listening to that. And then to go on and work with so many amazing influences on me, whether it was the guys in ELP or Adrian Belew or John Wetton from Crimson or Eddie Jobson. Really wonderful. And all the Zappa guys, being a Zappa fanatic. I've been so fortunate. I give thanks. I give thanks to the universe and to, I'm not spiritual. I am spiritual. I'm not religious. I don't give thanks to a specific, to me, imaginary entity. But I give thanks to the laws of chance and the universe itself and to my hard work. That's how I get these gigs. People always ask, well, how do you go about it? And I go, you fucking show up sober and on time. And you fucking do the job that you're asked to do. And you deliver results. And when you make a mistake, you acknowledge it and you fix it. There's many ways you get the gig, but that's a bunch of it. If it was easy, everyone would do it. It's not easy. You're away from your family, your friends, your loved ones, your pets. You're away from the normalcy of where you live, where you like to live. You're away from, all kinds of normalcy. And I'll touch on different things. But it's glorious to be out there being part of a team and helping that team create what you're there to do, which is 2 hours out of the 15 that there's music. If you're lucky, that's a good band. Some bands it's an hour. That I've worked on gigs where the music's 75 minutes, and the day is just as long. So it's a really amazing existential thing because you're part of helping people feel good. Those 1,000 or 2,000 people that come into that room every night that we just saw on the road, the joy of hearing them, hearing the applause, seeing what it's bringing to their lives after these 2 years, it's untouchable. And I am honored and grateful to be part of that every time I am. I'm honored and grateful to have been part of the final Emerson, Lake and Palmer concert on July 25th, 2010. I'm honored every time someone sends me a message, which happens all the time, says, dude, I was watching on Access TV, the final LP, and I saw you bring Craig Lake some, thanks, man, that's a great memory. And thank you for watching that. And so I'm honored by what I do. And it's, and I know that is so rare to have a career that you love every minute and that you're honored by the end results. And I'm lucky to have had a couple careers and they overlap with that. I did over 15 years in natural foods retail, which ties into why I'm here doing Meatless Monday. It's a passion of mine. I spent more than a decade and a half listening to people, counseling people, helping them find solutions, helping people find products, special products, mundane products, introducing people to new flavors, new ideas, new menus, new books, new recipes, talking to people about, well, what's macrobiotics, what's vegetarian, what's vegan, what's paleo, what's keto, what's the zone diet, what's the Atkins diet, how much protein do I need, how much vitamin C, how do I build my immune system, what are probiotics, what are herbs, how does this work, should I take a tablet, capsule, or liquid? So honored to have spent well over 15 years doing that professionally, like, for a paycheck every week, and certainly well over 35 years doing it just, anecdotally like this. So again, I give thanks that I overlap something I love, which is all that, with the music which is my life, my religion is music, my very existence. I can't even. Thought a lot about this, especially on this tour, and I'll tell you why in a minute. I think about it all the time, but especially this tour. So I'm able to overlap these things that I love, um, and I'm grateful. And then the third area is just teaching, and I give thanks that I've been a substitute teacher for over 20 years in New Jersey, here in North Carolina. I don't have kids, and the joy though, but I love kids and their brains and how quickly they learn and the different stages and the things that you learn in 6th and 7th grade than the things you learn later. And then you become a jerky high school student. And I don't want to have anything to do with you. No, in substitute teaching, we all roll our eyes when we see that we have 10th, 11th, 12th grade on the docket because it's always ridiculous. But I kid, of course. There's wonderful high school students. But I love it all because, it's giving back. It's a way to give back and to share something really important, critical thinking, right? And to introduce that a little bit. And you can imagine me as a substitute teacher. We've got the actual course material, but I'm always encouraging kids to think outside the box and to look at 360 degrees on anything and to use the technology that they're carrying around to find more information about whatever it is you're studying, right? Whether it's geometry or the history of Japan or, how ships are built, whatever it is. We live in this incredible world. So I just want to spend a little time there and express gratitude that I'm able to do things I'm passionate about and do them as a job. And I give thanks because a lot of people didn't get to carve that out for themselves. And I carved it out. Didn't fall in my lap. A lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of things I maybe should have done and didn't do. And I don't have much money at all. I live, month to month. And when you do a tour like this, sure, you got a few months of saying, okay, I can live. But I'm not, and I probably never will be rich. Most of us probably will never be. But my goal is stay healthy, keep working. I'll work till the end, and just appreciation is what I want to talk about. And I appreciate all of y'all, anyone here who's putting a little time into stopping by today to say hi and to discuss food and different issues. I love you all, and I appreciate you doing that. So, all right, back to the comments. Okay, yeah, Leipzig. Okay, COVID felt like a bad cold. 2 days of fever, and then you got fine. Thanks to the vaccine, it was not very bad. We have not reached the Omicron high in rush stock, but we'll soon. Yeah, thank you for all that. Thank you, Christopher Lowry, wishing me congratulations in health and wealth. I got to get my health dialed in a little bit more. I need to get back on the bike, get back in physical shape, because it was a rough 2 years. Did a lot of sitting around. We got rid of our gym membership. I sat around a lot more, drank a lot more of alcohol than I should have, and those are all empty calories. But no regrets. It's just, it's where we were as a planet. Not the only one who did that. And ate really healthy, but didn't do enough activity. So that's starting to do that. But thank you, Christopher. Wealth, I don't know about that. I'm not really ever going to see wealth. But you never know. I might luck out. I have some ideas, my friend. I've got some ideas for some apps. I got an idea for a game show. I've got my book. So there's, everything's possible. And you dream big. But I'm not wealthy. Never have been. And I'm fine with that. I got my punk rock ethics. I've got my, you work hard and you live cheap. And I do that. I'm very DIY and I cook my own food. And so, but thank you. But the wealth of embracing quiet time and embracing fellow humans who are doing good. Notice how specific I am. I don't embrace humans just because they're humans. I embrace the humans that are doing good. I have no interest in the ones that are not, etc. So I approach most things a little differently than the trite bullshit stuff that we're we're fed. But that's the wealth that I see. I have some great friends. I just worked with 9 great people on the road, plus 2 great a truck and a bus driver. These are the important people in my life over the past month where we worked together and kept each other safe and really did it. We once again did a tour of, I should look, but 10, 12 states. And we were very careful and lived in a COVID bubble. And there weren't backstage hangouts. There weren't parties. We didn't go out. We didn't do anything. When we did it, we were incredibly careful. We didn't go anywhere that was with the crowd or anything. And we did it. We proved that it's doable. And we took tests every 2 or 3 days. And we were masked up anytime we were working with locals, local crew, who also were masked up by contract, except in Florida, a few places, because it's Florida. And they have that crazy governor. And so we had a few situations. But we also heard about crew members who are dead. Who are dead. A guy died 2 weeks before we got to this one gig who was a denier, a mask denier, a vaccine denier. His mom died of COVID, and he's dead. And the other 12 crew people are still there. Now, again, that's anecdotal, but it's where the numbers are. Okay? I hate... what? We just went out and we showed it again, and we looked at sample spaces that were, again, over a number of states. We had this conversation many times with people, with locals, with promoters, and everyone said the same thing. They all knew people who got COVID, who had their shots, and they're okay. They had 3, 4, 5 days of head cold, fever, whatever, and every one of these people that we talked to had anecdotal stories of, yeah, but my neighbor's brother is a big QAnon guy, and he's dead. Or in Florida, yeah, my friend refused it, and she died. And so I'm just reporting that exactly what you're reading in the news is what I saw. And you know me, I'm going to talk to people. And it's what I saw. It's what I heard in Pennsylvania, in Virginia, in eastern North Carolina, in different places, Georgia. A bunch of times in Florida, we talked about this almost every day because of the different rules in Florida. And then finally in Texas. So I don't know what to say. Anyway, thank you, Tiffany McMahon. And Health is Wealth. You're exactly correct. That was a cool company. Are they still around? The food company. Zach Nelson, good to see you, my friend. And I'm so excited to be back home and make some electronic music. Zach, when you're ready to do repairs again, this right here is something I need you to repair. It's not in line right now. Let's turn it on. But I have a keyboard with broken keys. So either you teach me how to repair a key bed or I hire you to do that, bro, because you're brilliant at repairs. But I'm sorry that you had COVID. And as you're saying, you had 4 or 5 days. You had something. Now, I don't know if you're vaxxed. If you care to share that personal info, please do. And let me point out, I do know a couple people that were not vaxxed that got this, and they're fine. But they were, let's see, someone in their 40s, right, and someone else in their much younger, 30 or something. So if you got the youth and you're healthy and you're a good, healthy body weight, and you are generally a strong immune system, sure, there's a really good chance that you'll be fine, even unvaccinated. But not understanding that you're in the minority in that is just confusing to me. But more power to whatever. Okay, so Sabina is biking. Yes. Sell the car and bike. Yes. In Germany that works. In the US there's so much land. I know. I couldn't sell my car. But on the other hand, we drive so infrequently that we own a 2006 car, I think it is. Wow. And it works great. It's fine. We take care of it. So I'm with you. We have good buses here in Asheville. We don't take them enough. We have a few times, but we can walk right to the bus stop. But we walk to a farm market. We walk to the store sometimes. And when we do drive, it's short drives. But it's time to get back on my bike, and I am doing that. So thank you. And again, yeah, in so many European countries, the mass transit. You don't need a car, right? My sister lived in England for years. I've spent a lot of time in England. That's one of those places you don't need a car. You don't need a car. You've got the major train system to get you to every city, and then within each town and city, incredible bus and underground is what they call the subway in London. But yeah, you can get everywhere, and the buses are so cool. Not only is it cool, the double decker buses, they're all very nice and clean and cool, um, but they're designed in such a way that even as a musician, you could jump right on with an amp or with some equipment, and there's a space for like luggage that is designated for every right on the you get into those buses. So it's really cool for people that have bicycles or certainly a wheelchair or any assistance technology. But for musicians, and I know so many English musicians, and I've toured a little bit that included England, it's so cool that you could actually do it with mass transit. You can arrive in a train from Germany, and even the taxis, they kind of have these big spaces, the classic black taxis, that you can put a couple Pelicans or the 3 guitars and a box of cables. So that's what's interesting. That's not why they designed it. They just designed it with space. But it's so cool to be there in creative times. Yes, Sabina, working for peace. Okay, Frank, you're on YouTube. I'll check that out. Zach is vaccinated, no booster. Great, man. And I'll private message you. Okay, bro. I'll tell you real quick, too. It's broken, and I got an incredible deal. It's one of the best deals I got on a synth other than free that someone found in the garbage. And you repaired that one. My Split 8, the Prophet, basically. It's a sequential. But this one is a prologue. It's one of the greatest new synths from Korg. And it was damaged upon delivery to the distributor where I got it. And it fell in the box. It broke the box on the sides. And it broke the wooden cheeks on both sides. So it looks like it fell straight down. But anyway, it broke the wooden cheeks and broke about 15 or 16 of the keys. So a lot of the keys work. Interestingly, there's a nice octave and a half right in the middle. But I just control it from a controller. And so I've got the 16-voice Korg Prologue, which is just, wow. An incredible machine. Wow. 2 analog oscillators, and then the third oscillator with digital wavetable type stuff. But also you can load proprietary waveforms. So it's the best of both worlds because you can just keep that off and you have a purely analog signal path, purely analog filtering, and everything else is analog. And the only digital is if you choose to use that third oscillator, and if you add in, there's a digital delay and digital reverb at the end of the chain. And I think they even wired it up so that is parallel, so you don't, you have a pure analog signal. Really, really great synth, as Korg has done for decades. So we'll talk about that. All right, let's ask me some questions. Ask me some tour questions, and some stuff about food. Bring me back to food, and I'm going to show some pictures. All right, so let's go to YouTube. I'll have to come back to this because it's off topic for food, but yeah, that's right. You're right. The Ted Danson, yeah, it did get messy. Right. Okay, exactly. Okay, all kinds of stuff there. Anthony, how are you, my friend? Good to see you. And Anthony, please know that there's a lot of satire going on in these comments. Yeah. Gray Fortress says, Zach retired from repairs. Yes. Well, I'm going to bring him out of retirement, damn it. Uh, but, okay. Thanks for all those comments on YouTube. So let's talk about food. Why is people... Yeah, right. Mighty Slim. Bassam is bringing me back over to... I'll come back to things like that, but I'm going to talk about food for a minute. Bob Gluck says, percentage vaccines increase the percentage... Yes, that's true. Jerome on mass transit. Great point. And I agree. when your country's not owned by oil barons, which we have for 100 years. Right with you, my bro. Let's catch up soon. We got a lot of cynical commentary to talk about. Plus, I was just in the South with 3 black people in the organization and 7 that were not, and wonderful people. They weren't the problem, but I'll tell you, man, some shit. And before I knock the South, which I really don't, let me say that it's Long Island that strikes terror into my heart when I see that on the tour schedule. And there's lots of places like the middle of Indiana. Shit, you don't want to be there, man. And some of these places, the Dakotas, sometimes some of these places, east of Seattle and Portland, in those states. Wow. But certainly got some funky shit in Florida and in some of these places we went through, Texas. Some attitude, some funny vibe, as Living Color would say. So Jerome, we need to catch up on all kinds of stuff, music, but we'll have some funny stories about where America still is. Anyway, Sabina says, and she reminds us, of the grim reality. There's young people unvaccinated that died. You're right. You're right. And I'm not saying being young and healthy and slender and a good immune system guarantees. You're right. This vaccine, this virus is fucking brutal. And it is killing young people. And yes, very seldom does it kill vaccinated young people compared to unvaccinated. Exactly. That's the clear science. As our people just don't get it vaccinated. Exactly. And we always got to remember, 95 or more % of people just won't even get it. But in a place as big as the United States, 3% is somewhere 10, 12 and million people and more. So, no, thanks for reporting all those facts. People should take a look at that, Sabina, and interact directly with her if you disagree. All right, a great food question. Let's get back to food. Tiffany McMahon, thank you for steering it back that way. Am I a fan of raw dehydrated foods to travel? You're right. I used to leave. I was saying this earlier in the day. I used to leave the house with dried pineapple, dried mango, dates. Dates are an awesome food, and I ate a bunch of dates on this tour. I just carry less now because you just ask for it to be there. And also I've refined my understanding of what I need to eat on the road to thrive and have energy all day. But not that big of a fan. No, not really. I don't. Let's see. What did I leave my house with? On January 30th, I got into an airplane, and I had with me some of those raw nori rolls. They look like little rolled up cigars or joints, and they're sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, all these spices wrapped in nori. You ever have those? I think it's Govinda's that does them. They're excellent. They're awesome. Good amount of protein because it's sunflower seeds, hemp seeds, pumpkin seeds. Delicious. There's nice savory, garlic and onion powder and whatever stuff in there. They're vegan, super clean ingredients. So I carried a few of those because those are good every couple of days where it's like, oh, there wasn't anything good for me at lunch. Let me have one of these. So I carry those. I think I carried some vegan jerky. I get those things sometimes, which are great, fast source of protein. My favorite's the mushroom jerky, which mushroom has a good little bit of decent protein in it, but all kinds of other things. But then I get the soy-based ones or the wheat gluten-based ones. It doesn't matter. And they're all great. Some of those things are 7-8 grams of protein and I don't know, a quarter cup or a handful of this stuff. So it's very simple to get some protein. So I think I carried a couple things of jerky. And then I carry a little fishing tackle box, a little plastic box that's got spirulina, some zinc, some vitamin C, one a day, over 51 a day. I've got about 5 or 6 bottles of herbs that I carry with me. Wellness formula, which I've talked about in this show a lot. I have andrographis. I have black walnut hulls extract, which is a good detox kind of a thing. I don't take that every day. Let's see. I got some turmeric while on the road. So I kind of mix it up. But I have an immune boost formula, which has got echinacea and, some kind of mushroom compound, cordyceps, stuff like that. Very easy to find these wonderful different immune compounds. And I love that they're like works of art. You find different herbalists that feel stronger about this or that or have a little more leaning towards Ayurveda. So maybe there's some ashwagandha in there along with ginseng, plus echinacea. Sometimes there's golden seal. Sometimes there's andrographis. I love it. I love that plants have all these solutions for us. And the more you study how to discern quality. So I carry some of that stuff. Let's see. What else did I have? Oh, I had some vitamin D with me, some sprayable vegan vitamin D. I do a blood test every year, and I highly recommend that. It's one of the most important recommendations I can offer to people. When you do your annual checkup, which you should, get a blood test. Now, it's gotten funky with blood tests. Now they charge separately for it. You got to ask for it separately. We used to live in a world where a fucking blood test was an obvious part of a checkup. I can't understand what happened other than greed, right? Greed and commerce and kind of the American way of doing things where we let the pharmaceuticals write the healthcare laws. But a basic yearly or twice yearly physical checkup should include, I think, any rational non-medical person can come up with this list, and we could generally agree. When you go in, a doctor, he or she should be looking at your weight, your blood pressure, and your heart rate. That's kind of like the first couple things, right? Without any kind of invasive technology, that's something that the doctor can find out in the first 2 minutes, right? And then, as doctors do, looking at your eyes, looking at your general pallor or not, looking at the quality of your hair, your skin. There's a whole lot that a good medical practitioner can get right away, minutes in. And then you would think they would get into things like asking you some questions, right? A list of a dozen questions about, are you short of breath? Do you this, that, But then the invasive technology would be any range of things like X-rays or physical examination, palpitation of stuff, and turn your head and cough, and all kinds of things like that. As males get older, the glove goes on, and it's a prostate exam. So you have all kinds of things, and then you have blood tests, which I think have been shown to be really, really important and efficient. I insist on a blood test, and I urge all people to do that if they're interested in optimizing their health. Why? And said blood test should be, and you should demand this, demand your health care. That blood test should have, at its bare minimum, it should be a couple pages long. You should get a copy of it, whether it's through a portal online or a printed copy is even better because you can make some notes. And said blood test should be a complete assay of everything. Tell them you want every mineral, every amino acid, every compound, everything in your blood must be tested. You want the full thing. And a good blood test printout or on a screen or something will always have optimal numbers. In other words, it will say this many milliliters per liter of blood is what your, or milligrams, it depends on the substance, but some volume, right? Some kind of volume of your blood should be magnesium, should be, selenium, should be this type of fat, these B vitamins. Your A should be at this, between this number and that number. Your D, your E, your K, the fat soluble vitamins, very, very important. Very important. I mean, they all are, but those are four that we really don't talk about enough. Vitamins A, D, E, and K. Wow. You just cannot have optimal health without addressing those four. And you'll notice during this COVID crisis, vitamin A and D have come up repeatedly, haven't they? And I'm not going to call them names, but the people who have a certain belief system that may be way over to one side have said that, and you solve everything by just taking a lot of D or something. That's not true. But they are correct, and I extend them respect that they're correct, that vitamin D is vitally important in this COVID situation. And I've read this a dozen times from medical experts, epidemiologists, that vitamin D is most likely a very important part of why the numbers are different, the numbers in terms of serious illness and death in a lot of African countries, in India in a general sense, in some of these warmer countries where they're out in the sun. their vitamin D levels are optimal in most cases, and so we know there's a connection there. So these folks are correct when talking about vitamin D. They're not correct to say, and that means don't get a vaccine and don't wear a mask and just buy a bunch of vitamin D from the pillow guy. There's a balance there. So anyway, get a blood test. I suggest. I'm not a doctor or a medical expert, but I've spent decades of my life in a profession around optimizing health, and I really think you can get a lot out of complete blood tests. You learn a lot. You learn like, oh wow, my calcium has been down 3 years in a row there, or my potassium, or calcium, for instance. I'm proud to say my calcium's great, and it's great every year. And every year, my doctor currently, our doctor, is a vegetarian, so it's interesting. She's not vegan, but she's by definition super supportive of our diet. And it's interesting because this doctor and the doctor before remarks to me every year, say, wow, you're 53 and your calcium levels are really superb at your age. So whatever you're doing, do it. And I say to the doctor, I don't drink a drop of milk. I don't eat cheese. I don't do the things you're supposed to do to have super strong bones. And sometimes we have a discussion and they go, wow, that is exceptional. What do you do for calcium? And I say, everything else. Sesame seeds, tahini, dark leafy greens, kale, collards, chard, dandelion greens, almonds, other nuts that have trace calcium in them, root vegetables, all kinds of things, seed vegetables, calcium's all over the place. But also what I do is by eating a non-animal protein diet, my acid alkaline picture is, closer to optimal. So I'm not destroying calcium that's in my bones. That's the thing people don't understand. You have a trade-off, and you can go look this up. But people that have been long time on keto or paleo diets, they have some bone issues. They have some generally speaking here. But again, go read about this. There's tons of articles about this, how to address it. Those diets are great because you lose a lot of weight, you get lean, and that's awesome. But sometimes maybe that's not the only thing that defines robust health, is it? So minerals are really important. Eating mineral-rich food is really important. And eating things like vitamin C and fruit is vitally important to our absorption of minerals and iron and other things. That's the other piece of the puzzle that's not talked about enough. You can't just pop a bunch of iron pills or calcium pills or this or that. Supplementation is useful, and there's times that you want to speed things up and get high-quality supplements. But what's not talked about enough is the receptive environment for a lot of these things means eat more fruit, eat more leafy greens, eat more foods that will help you absorb the good minerals, the good nutrients, the good amino acids, whatever the thing is. So blood test, blood test, blood test. I can't say it enough. So let's come to some comments. Your comments are always great. So, wow, some great comments. Jerome Parker Wells says, amazing. I think that was when I was talking about fucked up people in this country and how they act towards a black man telling them what to do. It's a lot of fun, Jerome. Sometimes you're on these local crews and everyone's great. Let me just say, the vast majority of people that work in the music industry, it's tough to be a really off-the-chain racist and work where you're going to work with lots of women and hip-hop artists sometimes, and you're going to be around Latinos and Latinas. So you don't see that many off-the-chain people, except for Long Island. But you get some guys once in a while, and you just see them right away. Because when they realize I'm in charge of Stage Left and I'm going to tell you that case number S18 and M5 come my way and take that and open it up and take the empty case over there. Once you realize that I'm, the boss of you in a polite and respectful way, you can imagine, I'm wonderful to people. I think I say hi, I ask your name, we have a good time. But it's always funny. You get that one guy who's like, nuh-uh, this ain't going to happen. And he doesn't necessarily have that accent. Sometimes he's got the Long Island accent. But it's very funny to pick that guy out. They saunter away, or they're glum about it, or they kind of, they're kicking the stones in front of their feet, as it were. I love it, because then I ride them like the dogs they are. And it's a good thing. or I just let them be in their miserable world and not be around me, which is actually the better choice. So we'll talk about that. The problem with some blood tests is they're outsourced. My docs are covered under my insurance. I can even add on docs. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and they're outsourced. Tell me how that's a problem, though. I mean, if they're outsourced to an excellent lab and the lab comes back and it's got a track record of efficacy and all that, explain to me what the problem is with that, Frank. Are you saying the cost? Because then you have to pay more? Because I'm with you on that. I actually hopefully have time at the end of this show to I'm dealing with paying a whole lot of money for blood tests from last year because it suddenly went up. So I think there's a move on by the insurance companies to discourage us to do blood tests because you're right. It's an expense for the insurance company. You're right. It's outsourced. But tell me what other problems you might see with outsourcing. Bob Ramos, what's up, bro? Frank says take vitamin D every day. Yeah, pretty much, yeah, unless you're really going to be out in the sun a lot, and even then, it's yeah. Over here, you just get in for free. Everybody says thank you. Don't say free. Exactly. I had a discussion. I'm having a discussion with a friend right now about calling things free. And exactly. Thank you for saying that. Healthcare is not free in Germany. You contribute to the system by a progressive taxation, and those who are indigent and cannot provide, there's enough in the economy to help for them. But the vast majority of people are paying, right? In Germany, in France, in Italy, in Scandinavian countries, in Uruguay, Paraguay, Argentina, Japan, Australia, all these countries with, yes, I'm going to say it, superior comprehensive healthcare programs. They're all a little different, but they're superior to ours. There, I said it. We're not number one in a lot of things. We're number one in some stuff, but we're not number one there. Why? Because even while I embrace Obamacare and it's a way that I can buy insurance, that my family can purchase insurance for the first time in my life, even though I embrace some parts of it and that it recognizes that I don't make much money, so I'm going to pay less than someone who makes 200,000. It should be that way. Or someone who has 6 kids. It should be that way. That's an expense you agreed to take on. Having said that, there's good things about our national health care. There's horrible things about it, starting with they included the pharmaceuticals, right? The big drug companies and the big hospital conglomerates. They let them sit at the table to design this fucking healthcare bill. So it's got poison baked into the cake. So it's still better than it. We've had it in the USA for years, but it's not free. You're paying for it with tax dollars and also with your monthly premium, which I'm happy to pay. But a lot of broken things about American healthcare, and I'll always point that out. And I'll always point out that my relatives and friends right in Canada are amazed at the way we do it. My relatives and friends in England are amazed at the way we do it. I don't have relatives right now, but my friends in Germany are amazed at how we do it. Likewise, Netherlands, Jamaica, Uruguay, Argentina, Chile, Peru, where I talk to people. I go there and I ask people because I'm fucking hooked on politics and social welfare and how countries are put together and how democracies work. So, believe it or not, I sit in Uruguay having a beer with someone over dinner who's our promoter, and I talk about their society. I'm relating an actual story here. In Uruguay, the guy was fascinating because he's Uruguayan, but grew up in the U.S., went to college, and went back there to start a co-op and to do a music production thing. And we had great talks about the differences in the justice system, LGBT rights, which were incredibly advanced in Uruguay. They were one of the first countries to do a lot of LGBT rights that we didn't get to years later. They legalized marijuana before Canada. Go look that shit up. Canada gets all the headlines. Uruguay, incredible country. I'm telling you, watch a documentary on Uruguay. Because in your mind, for some of you, you're thinking shoeless, starving people in tin roofs. No, Uruguay is badass. And I really learned so much being there for 4 or 5 days. Amazing place. But anyway, just riffing here that our healthcare in the United States still needs some tweaking, still needs some things. But most of all, take your health into your own hands. How about that? That should be something we encourage in the culture. That's what I'm here for Meatless Monday meetups to do. I'll say it for those of you who haven't heard it recently or don't know this. This is not a show just for vegetarians. This is not a show just for vegans. If you're a hunter, but you want to not eat meat once a day, you're welcome on my show. And if you're a hunter, you're at least approaching the access to flesh food in a better environmental way. So I applaud you on that level. So again, this is a show for people who are just part-time vegetarians. They want to get some encouragement about it. Once in a while, I have some chefs. I have some guests. I have more coming up. I just met a wonderful vegetarian vegan chef on this tour. The fiance of the drummer is a young woman who has a business in New York. I'm going to interview her, so that's coming up. She does pop-ups and classes, and she does catering, all kinds of stuff. So as you know, those of you who've been watched this show for a while, you know all this, but please excuse me, I'm explaining this for people who are new to it, that's kind of my mission, to help empower you to take control of a lot of this stuff. And then we need the healthcare system less, right? So, all right. Steve Hershey, good to see you, my friend. Frank says, my doctor balks when I request more frequently they should perform. I'd like to get my A1C checked more frequently. My doctor's gatekeeping that. Yeah, see, that's fucked up. When you say more often than they should be performed, my general thing is once a year. You know, as I get older, I might go to twice a year checkups. But so this is a doctor who thinks once a year is too much? That's just getting crazy. Sabina, there's a problem of overdoses of vitamins. Yes, you're right. It's not good to just take them. Exactly. Vitamin C, overdose may block the consumption of selenium. I'm not understanding that, but might be a typo. Selenium, maybe you're talking about. Lisa said I heard of it. No, Germans are different. Yes, Germans, and you're saying Germans prefer natural stuff over chemistry and antibiotics. You know, you can say that you're German, but really, are you willing to say most Germans prefer natural stuff over chemistry and antibiotics? I wouldn't argue that, but and I would say my general experience in Germany is that I go into an apothecary or something, and there's just as many herbs and homeopathic remedies and plant-based remedies as there is drugs. So I see what you're saying there, and I'd also say, as a plant-based person, Germany is one of the easiest places to eat vegetarian, to eat natural. So I think I know that. I think that's what you're saying. I find in Germany, you have stores that are natural stores, organic stores, but almost any regular kind of German small shop is automatically more natural. So I think I know what you're saying. I go into little shops in Germany. I might be in Dusseldorf. I might be in Köln. I might be in the Bavarian region. I might be in Rostock, in Bad Doberan. I might be anywhere. Frankfurt. You know, all around Germany I've been. And Berlin. And I find that you just go into almost any shop, and yeah, that's right. You find whole grain bread. It's like most of it. And you find things that are marked organic or biologique, you know. You find a lot of vegan options. And there's this company in Germany with these vegan pâtés and dips and stuff that you find in the smallest little store. So yeah, I know what you mean. In that way, Germans are very embracing of natural stuff. Jägermeister, which I love, is a beautiful, ancient, herbal German formula from the forest. So more Jägermeister. It's all herbs. Basam says, funny that they told people to stay home, yet we need vitamin D. I know, right? That is kind of weird. Rich Hilton, what's up, my bro? Rich says LOL 8 minutes ago. I'm not sure what that was, but good to see you, my bro. What an honor to have just one of the favorite people I like to see sit around and talk about music and culture. And I see Rich on. Rich is a keyboard player. He's on here, synthesist. He's worked with so many people through the years and years with Nile Rodgers and Chic, but years and years just being a recording artist and on many records and producing and stuff. But I see Rich on this show called Sonic State, and any of you that are musicians or interested in production or what's new in technology, instruments, apps, all this stuff. Man, I love that show. It's called Sonic State, and it's on Wednesdays, right? I usually see it after the fact, but I think you can look it up on YouTube, Sonic State, and it comes live from England. There's this guy Nick that is the host. I'm forgetting his last name. Nick Bat, is that his name? But Nick has all these wonderful hosts and musicians and tech people. Noad, that guy Noad is great, and I'm forgetting some of the. There's a guy named Nhat that's really awesome that teaches classes and does modular. So it's this beautiful mix of people. Cuckoo is often on there, and Rich Hilton is here. And I know Rich has a healthy diet lifestyle too. That's come up in the past, so it's great to see him here. Bob Gluck, another great keyboard player, says center octave is overrated. That's all I got here. Jose Alberto Pepe Mujica. Who's that? Who's that? Okay, so blood tests. Back to blood tests. So you've dealt with LabCorp, and depending on the test, the doctor makes the question, even the paperwork. Yeah, the bill can go to hundreds of dollars. That's what I'm fighting right now. I got like a $500 or $600 bill that I'm fighting. I'm like, what the fuck? So the coding was wrong. Exactly. Because I'm paying for healthcare. Why am I paying for $600 of a test? I hear you. So yeah, all that. Steve Hershey, waves. Yes. I think that was some correction to something earlier. Oh, so every 6 months. You'd like it every 3. Wow, blood test every 3 months. Now that's hardcore. I won't argue that. I would do that for a couple of years because what that would show would be a nice window. And of course, with any data gathering, the more snapshots you take, it's like photography, right? The more, or film, the more frames per second. Or if you're sampling, right? The higher the sample rate, you're going to get a more clear picture. So yeah, blood tests every 3 months. I dig what you're saying. And I can't argue that because then you get a real kind of a look at things and you can go, oh, wow, I tend to be lower in this in the summer. Maybe or in the winter because I'm not eating enough fresh fruit. Look at my vitamin C. Look at my, whatever numbers might reflect different things. Very nice. Sabina says in general, yes, you're referring to medicine, not food. Okay, and I say I applaud your beautiful Deutschland on the food too, because I think I just described before. Tell me if that's describing what your reality is. But again, you go to a normal German store, and you're right, Jerome, Aldi and Lidl is, I don't know how you say that. They're incredible stores. But even your little, quote-unquote, ma and pa, just little stores. In Berlin, a lot of these Turkish-run stores and stores that are Greek people and you see Moroccan people and Egyptian people have stores, Ethiopian people. There's a lot of stores in Berlin that you can kind of go in and from the name and everything, you're like, oh, cool. They're from, Nigeria. And just kind of across the board, there's a real embracing in German culture. The 20 years I've been going there every year and a half or so, of these other cultures and their foods and their, there's clashes, of course. That's a whole other broadcast. But there's clashes, and those often are, if it's a tricky area, but if someone comes there and really doesn't want to assimilate, and that's a whole other topic. But anyway, Yoad Nevo. Thank you, my friend. That's right. I couldn't remember his name. Okay, awesome. Jerome, do you know Rich Hilton? You guys probably have like 10 friends in common because of the New York, New Jersey connection and the connections to Nile Rodgers and stuff. Tony Zotto, am I working Wakeman's show? No, I've never worked for Rick Wakeman. I worked with him for about a week when we did the reunion of the two yeses. The great performance at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2017 when we had almost the classic 70s lineup, the lineup that lasted the longest. Alan White, John Anderson, Steve Howe, Rick Wakeman, and filling in for the fallen Chris Squire was Geddy Lee. Wow. They couldn't have thought of a better situation. And then also, to kind of connect it with the 80s successful Yes, the one and only Trevor Rabin. So that was a great super group. That's the one time I worked with Wakeman. It was a delightful week hanging out with him after the rehearsals and, cracking jokes and, talking to him about Moog and all that. But I've never worked for him formally, so I will not be there in March. Sorry. Oh, yes, I knew that name was familiar. Thank you, Jerome. Yes, of course. I knew that name was familiar. Jose Mujica? Yes, amazing guy. And I have checked him out. Just couldn't pull the name real quick. That guy was amazing. Is that the guy who went to work on a scooter, right? He didn't even have a car and he lived in his little apartment. Yeah, I love that shit. Sally Sparks, thank you. It's good to be back. Good to be back. Better health resolution. Yes, more testing. Awesome. You watch Sonic State also. That's great. Back to Germany and food. Organic. This is not organic like the Blue Angel was. That is just EU standard organic, which sucks. Sorry to say that, but it's food grown in China in plastic tunnels with less chemistry. That's not organic. But this, wow, as a big monopolize, make money from bio and still gain. I'd love to know more about that, my friend. Please put an article here because I'd love to read it. Others love to read it about what you're saying about the European standard being degraded. I want to see some articles about food being grown in plastic tunnels in China. That's, pretty amazing info to hear. I'd love to see that. And of course, with organic, you got a whole discussion of verification and efficacy and stuff. But a lot of it's driven by, fortunately, most organic food feels and tastes and seems a little different most of the time. Not always. You can't tell on many, many things. But, okay, cool. I'm going to talk about some of the food I ate on tour because some people were asking that. Let me go on to YouTube. Wes Darling, how are you? I saw you working a show, and I could tell you were the guy in charge. I don't know what show that was, but thank you, Wes. Sometimes I am actually the guy in charge. I'm the tour manager often for bands, and that's kind of who runs the whole tour. Other times, I am the stage manager or the production manager, and that's who runs either the stage or the whole production, which would include the stage, the lighting, the sound reinforcement, the in and out of everything. They work with the tour manager on the scheduling and stuff. So yeah, sometimes I'm the guy in charge. On this tour right here, I'm not. I'm in charge simply of keyboards and synthesizers. So I listen to my stage manager, who everyone on the crew, wonderful, amazing people that I learned from, some older than me, some younger than me. So I just take care of setting up and wiring most of the synthesizers and keyboards, and then a few other things I do with the wiring. So your responsibilities and who's your boss changes based on the tour you're on. Sometimes I'm the tour manager and the stage crew. Like with 10 years after, toured with them, I was, and hopefully will later this year, I was the tour manager and also set up the drums and the keyboards and the bass amp. So sometimes it depends on the tour. But thank you, Wes, for being at a show. And I thank everyone that comes to a show that I'm working, because it's because of you I can work. So thanks for being there. Yeah, pharma ads and the government becoming the drug dealer. Rich, you're right. That got really bad. Did I ever look into motherfucker polymorphisms? Been studying Ben Lynch's book, addressing a lifelong health problems for me. Our food system sucks. Yeah, I don't know about that, Wes. I'm going to Google that right now. I've heard polymorphisms, of course. Todd Reynolds, how are you, my friend? And thank you. That's very nice of you to say. A highlight of your Monday. Thanks, bro. Good to be back. Good to be exhausted in a good way. And let's catch up. Let's catch up on a call. So, that's awesome. So thank you, Wes Darling. So that doesn't stand for motherfucker. I love it. But there's a gene called the MTHFR gene. And that studies have shown that various polymorphisms in the motherfucker gene have been associated with a small risk of neural tube defects, a group of birth defects that occur during the development of the brain and spinal cord. Okay, interesting area to study. And I see what you're saying. Foods with folic acid might not be something that you want to eat, right? So enriched grains, pasta, cereals, breads, and commercially produced flours, which I almost never touch. One of the worst foods, exactly, is white flour and enhanced flour, and all the breads and pasta and cereals that we eat are generally bad news. I know that's crazy sounding to some people, but Wes Darling is onto something here, and I will read about the motherfucker gene. I know, that's not what it stands for. It's the methyl N-tetrahydrofolate reductase, is abbreviated to MTHFR, which conveniently looks like motherfucker. But I'll put it in the chat. There we go. People can take a look. Muchika, a very humble man. Yes, example of how he has it. Yeah, I love him, bro. And that's what when I was there, it was 2018, 19. He was either still the head of state or someone else had been elected and he was running again. I forget. But he's great, a lot of good stories there. Blue Angel Organics. Yeah, EU compromises. So you lost quality, you're saying, in Germany for organic. Yeah. Okay, I'll take a look at that. Thanks for that article on the eco label. Please put a link about these plastic tubes underground in China. That's some scary shit. So, all right. So caught up on questions. Let's talk a little about specifically on food. Again, still in a great place about this tour I was just on because of the music, because of the people, the crew. Pat Metheny himself, who I knew this before I worked for him starting last November, because I was a huge fan, still am a huge fan of the music, separate from working there. And I would read every interview. I would, get all the DVDs. I'd go to the show every year, and he's one of those handful of artists, and it's a small handful for me, where Tuesday, release day, man, you've been waiting for weeks because you've seen some articles in Guitar Player or Musician Magazine or whatever. This is in 1987, 1992, 1995, the year 2000, 2002, all the way down the road when we were kind of pre-internet. He was one of those artists where I was like, oh man, there's a new Pat album. Did you hear? It's going to have this. Or And so, one of those artists I followed very closely. So it's really surreal to be part of the team, part of his team. And he considers himself on the team. That's what's really cool. He just says, and we talk about this. I'm not going to talk about my personal conversations with my boss, but I'll say a general thing or two that is obvious and that he talks about in interviews publicly. I'll share things like that. And he says things along those lines. He said, Andre, I'm on the team. We're bringing music into this reality. And so he says that a lot in interviews. There's a really great Rick Beato interview recently, and I got to meet Rick Beato on this tour, which was wonderful, and hope to interview him. But on that interview, Pat talks about how music is this thing, it's this other thing, and he's listening to it while he's performing. And the trick is, you're listening, you're creating it, but you're also a listener, so you're listening to the other 2 or 3 or 7 people on stage, or 55, and you're participating while listening. It's a real balance, and I love that, and I approach music like that, and I have had countless conversations with musicians, with some of my students, with some of my teachers. I love Pauline Oliveros, and I love John Cage, and Richard, Muhal Abrams, or anyone that you can think of that talks about kind of the concept of music, right? Braxton and his son. These are cats who talk about not only music, but what is music? What's it doing? Stockhausen. There's so many great thinkers. Eno, who talk about the music, but also what is music? What's going on here? What is it to humans? And so I love that I'm in a situation where that's part of the discussion. It's really beautiful. So an honor to be part of that. So there's the music and the whole approach to the music. The music's incredible. If you haven't heard this album yet, that's kind of the album cover. Side Eye. It's the name of the band. It's the name of this evolving project idea that Pat has, where he's going to have people come in and out of the band and change it and morph it and have a few incarnations. And again, he's talked about this in interviews. There's a great Downbeat interview 6 months ago or something you should look for. So Side Eye is the album. incredible record because his concept was to have this trio vibe, and it is. There's Joe Dyson on drums. Joe is amazing. Uh, you know, Joe has worked with all kinds of amazing artists. Um, Notably Lonnie Smith. He worked with Lonnie Smith for many years. And he's got his own thing happening. JoeDyson.com, I think, is where you can find him. I should put that link and let you all know. But Joe has been an incredible person to get to know. He's this drummer that is not even 30. He's like 27 or something like that. And he's really done so much so far in his life. He's got this great record out, Look Within. And he's got a real amazing history so far, as I said, from New Orleans. I might not have said that, but you know, Dirty Dozen Brass Band he's done work with. I forgot about that. Leo Nocentelli, right, from the Meters, being from New Orleans. He's lucky to meet some of these guys. John Batiste. So he's just done some amazing stuff, including the past few years with Pat Metheny's group. So that's the drummer, and I'll put his site here for y'all. Wonderful guy, and like I said, his own solo stuff is really cool. I'll put that link. And then the other guy who I work directly with is the keyboard player. The keyboard player's name is James Francis, and James is another. What's the word? I mean, for both of these guys, just a bright light, someone who's pulling together so many styles, so much stuff with incredible chops, incredible musicality, which is different from chops. That's really what's important. So James is also got a few records out on his own. He's on the Blue Note label, and he's got some wonderful new records. I think he put one out last year. And someone's asking a question. Joe has worked with Dr. Lonnie Smith. So, Dr. Lonnie Smith, the one with the head wrap and plays the beat 3 and stuff like that. Because there's also Lonnie Liston Smith, right? So, different guy. Anyway, check him out. Jeff, you'd love his records, his new record. So you have this amazing trio that Pat has assembled. And let me put the other link in there for James Francis. So James is this pianist, this synthesist. He is jazz trained. He's classically trained. He from Houston, Texas. So it was wonderful that we did a show in his hometown. He's also like 26 or 27, something like that. And he's played with Jeff Tain Watts and Terrace Martin and all these incredible people. But then also a lot of people in pop music, hip hop, R&B. He's worked with Questlove and Lauryn Hill. He's on the most recent Childish Gambino. So he does a lot of stuff, a lot of pop stuff, and a lot of funk stuff, a lot of hip hop stuff. And we talk music. We have a great time. We talk about synthesizers, and then I sit and watch this guy blow up the bridge and make people go, how is he doing that? One of his things, and Pat has set it up this way, kind of looking at his skill set. One of the things James does is play the bass on left hand. So we have no bass player. It's Pat on guitars and different types of guitars. Joe on a pretty modest little drum set. And James, he is the bass player. James, the keyboard player, dedicates his left hand on 90% of the night. And he uses this amazing software called Trillion, which is part of Omnisphere, that same company. And there's incredible sounding upright basses, fretless basses, 5-string basses, all kinds of basses. And you can get in there and you can have different types of classic bass amps, and you can adjust the compression and the attack and the pick noise if you want. And really, really amazing. And every night when I'm tearing down stuff, people come up and they're kind of looking up there going like, you hear them chatting. They're like, well, I think he was playing the bass. I was watching his left hand. So, and people remark how good it sounds and how he really gets inside how a bass player plays, the kind of articulation. When they did some of the early Metheny material that featured Jaco Pastorius, to watch James nail that stuff on a fretless bass sound, and it's one thing to have the sound like an instrument, but you got to understand the aesthetic of a trumpet player, of a sax player, of someone playing, you know, a B3 organ versus a piano. There's all kinds of things about instruments that can sound like other instruments that are an interesting discussion. And the first thing is getting inside the headspace of a trumpet player. They don't play like a sax player. They don't play like a guitarist. The attack of the notes and the relationship with the notes, everything's different. So to watch this guy not only have incredible chops, incredible limb independence, where he's doing crazy lines on one hand and then comping and then soloing, while the left hand is nailing this bass line stuff. So James Francis is kind of just brilliant at that, you know, and it's something I think that a lot of organ players are brilliant at. A lot of B3 players, you look at Jack McDuff or Jimmy Smith or what Booker T, or any people that John Lord. I mean, you name it. Any B3 brilliant people. Joey DeFrancesco. They have usually incredible bass line chops in the left hand, right? So that's one of the things that Brent James, because he's a great B3 organist. So check them out. Check out the band. And having talked about those guys, the other thing we have on stage is Bits of Pat's Orchestrion, which is his robot kind of mechanical instrument thing. He did a tour a decade ago with 100% machines. He was the only human on stage. And on this tour, he thought, well, let's bring a bit of that. So there's a couple little things we have. A xylophone, a glockenspiel. Or is it a marimba and a glockenspiel? I forget. It's a xylophone. And then some cymbals and bongos and a cabasa and just a bunch of cool things that are all played by mechanical means. You can go on YouTube and punch in Pat Metheny Orchestrion. It's the word orchestra, except I-O-N at the end. Orchestrion, T-R-I-O-N, Orchestrion, just like it sounds. And it's a word from previous centuries, actually, when they had mechanical little orchestras that at that time were pretty much clockworks. You know, you would wind them up and they would operate, or they'd be human operated. Someone would be behind the scenes pedaling bicycle pedals that's making this bear play drums, and a horn is blowing because air is going through it. You know, this is not a new idea. And then you have the player piano, which Pat says in interviews he was fascinated by, and that helped him say, well, what if we did something in the modern era? So he's got some great interviews about this, and on YouTube there's a little 5-minute video where he explains the whole thing and why he thought of developing it for himself. So we have that on the road too, and that's driven by some sequencers. There's MIDI involved and all this. So there's times in the show where it's the three guys and some machines. So it's a full sound. It's an incredible thing, and you hear all that on this record called Side Eye. So so that's a little bit about where I just was, and we kind of worked in Pennsylvania, Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama, Florida, and Texas. I think I hit all the states. So it was, kind of a quick tour, a month, just under a month, like a day or two short of a month, and quick by tour standards. And it was awesome. It was really good time. Hard work, a lot of 15-hour days, as I keep saying. But okay, so I just put a link in there. Keyboard player who I work for and set up for. Okay. Thank you. Jerome has put the orchestrion. Thank you. That's awesome. Steve Hershey. Trumpet players need to breathe occasionally, except the vampire ones. Yeah, big difference. Joe, yes, Jeffrey, bro, you're going to love Joe Dyson's kind of world and his own music, and also people he's played with. And also Donald Harrison. I forgot to mention that he's played a lot with Donald Harrison, and the great sax player. And he's playing with this young sax player out in Santa Barbara soon. I forget the guy's name. Doucette? I forget his name. But guy from New Orleans again. So that's kind of the music. I'm gonna wrap up in shortly in about 20 minutes or so. But this has been great and good to see all of you again. I'll be doing this for a couple Mondays. The month of March, and then I go back on tour in April sometime. Not hydrating enough. I really hydrate well on tour, and I kind of fell off the last couple days of the tour. But here's some random pictures actually. So this is 95 or something, somewhere in there. This is Pat on stage with Derek Bailey. I know the light's kind of funky. Sorry about that. But pictures by my dear friend Bob Ramos. But there's Pat on stage with, that's Greg Bendian behind him, but he's on stage with Derek Bailey and Paul Wertico and Greg. It was a quartet called The Sign of Four, which is based on that, the title based on the, what's his name? Arthur Conan Doyle, the Sherlock Holmes guy. So that was pretty cool. I was at these shows. I was standing a few feet away. So that just gives you a little snapshot into the mid-90s concert that happened. 2 guitarists, 2 drummers. So Pat had all this stuff. That Fender amp in the back is Derek Bailey, who just came out with a weird approach to a guitar and an amp. And I don't know if he even had any pedals. And Pat had all guitar synths and all this kind of stuff. So very cool. So that's just random because I had that there. So food is pretty easy on tour, folks. I know that maybe sounds challenging to some people. And I'll say at this level, and whether I work with bands like Yes or ELP or different things, and working with Adrian Ballou, even working on just the small club level, what's wonderful is you submit a rider, which is like your requests for what you want to see. And I will say that even at the real small group level, like playing the 300 to 500 seat venues, usually at that budget level, you can ask for what you want. And if you want, a fruit plate, some hummus and cherry tomatoes and carrots and pita bread, very easy to get that. So while it's a little monochromatic and it's a little, I'm not even going to say boring because I think it's awesome to make a nice pita sandwich with a bunch of lettuce and cabbage and onions and put some hummus in there and some cherry tomatoes. That's fucking great. I'll, eat that anytime. I don't eat much pita these days. I don't eat much bread, but that's a wonderful and healthy meal. And many times on the road, I've done that for half the tour. Just subsisted on the backstage whole grain pita, the clean, natural hummus, which it all is. That's one great thing about hummus. You could send somebody in the middle of any state, the most, off the grid place, and they're going to find hummus in the supermarket. It's amazing how that has really penetrated the market, like it's ketchup or salsa or something. It's probably right after that. And so hummus is always a good go-to. If you bring me a salad and there's hummus somewhere, I'll put some of that hummus on the salad. If I don't have any hummus, I have almonds with me all the time. I'll put those in the salad, or I have walnuts. So it's very easy to get protein. Salad is also ubiquitous. There ain't a place I've been, whether it's Iceland or deep into Western Russia, or I've been everywhere. Truck stops in Bavaria, Peru, Argentina, Brazil. These highly carnivore, aesthetic places. Salad is everywhere. So that's easy, and I happen to love salad. Some people don't. But if I get a nice, interesting salad, and again, if I just have something to throw in there, if they don't have other options, but the bare minimum. But I almost always have some emergency stuff like some grape leaves or a bottle of olives or something, or dried olives, like those oil cured, those black olives. Man, I love those, and those are great. Nice source of fat. A lot of minerals in those. But I almost always have something if it's a fuck up and they didn't really bring any other stuff. But they almost always do. So and certainly at this level, the tour I just did, fantastic. There was a vegan soup just about every day. And what's really lovely about having a vegan soup on the rider is it means everyone can eat it. The gluten-free person can eat it. The dairy allergic person can eat it. The vegan can eat it. The vegetarian. There's a pescatarian on the tour. It means everyone can eat it. The biggest carnivore on earth, if it's a nice savory soup, whether it's split pea or mixed vegetable or lentil soup we had the other day, or well, any number of, it's so easy to make vegetarian soup. And if it's a delicious hearty soup, especially we just came out of a winter tour, February, people were overjoyed. We would walk in to lunch, the lunchroom, and there's great hearty hot soup. So a vegan soup is a really, really brilliant logical choice because, again, everyone can eat it, right? Especially when you've got these overlapping things. Like I said, one person loves dairy, but they're gluten intolerant. Another person is gluten intolerant, but they eat gluten, but they can't eat dairy. Someone like me who chooses not to have any animal products. Someone who, you get my point. It's really great. And many tours I'm on, because it makes sense, many tours do that. They always have a soup and a salad, and then there's chicken, or there's fish, or both, or there's beef. That's actually much rarer, you see. But you see that a couple times during a tour. You'll see, but everything's laid out so you can put it together the way you want. And many times the people who are meat eaters are going, yeah, I want to go a little light today. And there's a quinoa tabbouleh, or there's a stuffed peppers that are all vegan, or there's so that's the kind of tour this was, and any tour is above just the basic club level at this point, where you really get, very easy to get really cool things on the rider. There's also always hot coffee, hot tea, and really good stuff, iced tea, kombucha, things like that. Very easy to have all that. So answering the general overall questions some people have asked, I have no problem on tours, and especially these tours with a good diet. So I'm going to show some pictures and wrap up with kind of just some specifics on food. Wes Darling is saying he was trying to do keto for the last 2 years. It nearly killed me. Yeah, unfortunately, bro. I've heard that from a number of people. I haven't heard someone say that nearly killed them. Maybe one person said that, but I've heard half a dozen friends who've done it, and they have problems. They've increased inflammation in their joints. That's a serious problem with keto. A lot of these folks have had digestion issues, acid reflux. That's a very common thing. Of course it is, because you're just packing animal protein into your body. I know there's more to keto than that. I'm well aware the details of keto. I'm just painting with a broad brush for anyone. But in general, you're removing almost all the carbs, and humans are kind of designed to eat fresh fruit and to eat some things that have good, absorbable, sensibly balanced carbohydrates in them. So keto is tricky because it delivers on the one thing that's really promised. You're going to lose weight. You're going to go into ketosis. You're going to burn fat. You're going to end up thinner, which unfortunately is what drives almost anything in our culture, in Western culture, but especially American culture. But I've talked to a lot of people that run into issues, absorption issues, vitamin issues, all kinds of stuff. So you're saying your carb intolerance turned out to be a B2 deficiency. Okay, so that's a bummer. And I know some people have done really well on keto. It's a range, but the majority of the ones I've spoke to, there's some kind of a problem where they come off of it. The ones who really drilled down and did some supplementation, B complex was one of the things I know that they took. And one person did a lot of digestion supplementation, so a lot of making sure that he was getting probiotics, prebiotics, because you're eating a highly acidifying diet, and that's going to mess with, again, your acid alkaline profile. It's going to mess with your digestive, your digestive tract chemistry is just not going to be optimal, which also impacts absorption of different vitamins and things. So I could see B vitamin deficiency, Wes. Well, I'm glad you sussed it out and you got, yeah, I'm glad you're, I'm assuming that you sussed it out and you're feeling better now. So that's great, man. Okay, so I got some random pictures that I'll share. Now, I should be doing this by screen share or by my, well, thanks to Facebook. I'm not doing it that way. Here's a random meal. So we'll do some random meals. This was awesome. This was just a nice salad. I tried a little bit of that gluten-free, pasta you see there. That was okay. Not a huge pasta fan, but I love good gluten-free pasta, like pasta that's made from black beans and from rice. And there's an excellent pasta made from spirulina and soybeans. Wow, that is so good. And the texture is amazing. And they make a spaghetti out of that. Anyway, that was nice to try. It was just like a pasta primavera with the oil on it and garlic and the broccoli. And a general salad. The exciting thing here was that stuffed pepper. That's a wonderful, delicious pepper that was stuffed with couscous and I think like olives and parsley and all kinds of nice spices and herbs. So that was great. That was just one random place where the food was awesome. I don't sit there and take pictures of all my meals, folks. I remembered about half a dozen times, and I did it because maybe I'll put this on my show. So I'm doing that. Let's see. This is what you could hope to see in a good catering. Some nice fruit. Those were some nice fresh pressed juices that were there. All kinds of delicious juices that we had. And again, this could be a yes tour. It could be UK. It could be most of the tours I do that are past like the club level. Again, I'm emphasizing that usually at that level, you just order whatever you need. If someone likes to eat duck every single day, you can get duck on there. One of the big tours I do, not this one, there's a guy who wants a cheeseburger every afternoon. So he gets a cheeseburger. And the tour, the production assistant makes sure a cheeseburger is hot and ready at whatever time of the day. And this guy eats a cheeseburger every day, every single day. I've seen him have a cheeseburger when we're in Japan. I've seen him have a cheeseburger when we're in Poland and Germany, whatever, New York, Detroit. He just loves cheeseburgers. What are you gonna do? But my point, at that level, you get whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Okay, what the heck was this day? Oh, right. So this was breakfast at a place. I'm like a coffee or tea and fruit breakfast person. I just don't eat that much till about 11:30 or 12. But I will. We've talked about just egg on this show. That's an amazing breakfast food because you can, just like eggs, make a nice scramble or omelet with, I like scallions and tomatoes and peppers and stuff. Had that a little bit on the previous tour with this band. But this time, a lot of fresh fruit. A couple times, like cashew-based yogurt, soy-based yogurt is often there. Actually, it's not soy. It's usually cashew now or almond-based, coconut-based. There's some incredible yogurts out there, and they have great numbers. They have great caloric value. There's great little bit of protein in them, like that much yogurt would normally have. There's good digestive optimization in there. In other words, there's acidophilus and stuff like that, which there's really not a lot in any yogurt because they're usually pasteurized after the fact. But depending on the brand, sometimes it's live cultures, and that's true for dairy and non-dairy yogurts. You have to really explore that. But one thing that's a myth is eating yogurt to help your digestive. No, yogurt is basically dessert. It's basically just a quick way to get some protein and some other stuff. But don't eat yogurt to fix your digestion. That's crazy talk. Consult a medical expert, right? And find out the facts on what's happening in the digestive system. I'm not a medical expert, But when you do, you can often do really well with just some high quality refrigerated prebiotics and probiotics. Learn what those things are. That's some of the most important things in your health journey. I can't stress it enough. Some would say the most important thing is knowing that your gut health, your gut flora, right? Because there's a forest of organisms growing in there, and there should be millions and millions and millions of different species of different types of bifidus and acidophilus and bulgaricus, this and that. They all have these Latin names, of course. But please do some research on your gut. It's one of the most important things. Understand what a highly acidifying diet is doing to your gut. What's a highly acidifying diet or a somewhat acidifying diet? A diet with a lot of regular animal protein in it, a lot of flesh in it. That's a very acidifying diet. That's why the majority of Americans, there's a few things, and I'll say all those things, not just meat, are the reason why a vast majority of Americans are on some form or another, either over the counter or prescription antacids, digestive aids, things like Nexium, Tums, Pepsid AC, all these things that are incredibly ubiquitous, Pepto-Bismol even on the milder just symptom reduction level. We have a problem when those are way high up in the top drugs that we're taking. And it's not just flesh foods. That's really near the top of the list, but too much dairy, too much shitty dairy, too many processed carbs, white flour, white bread, pasta, bagels, pretzels on the street in New York City. That's garbage most of the time, and for what it does, for the acidifying effect, for the acid reflux stuff. It's that stuff, folks. So it's the flesh foods, it's the shitty carbohydrates, it's the overabundance of grains in our diet. White rice isn't that great. White rice is a questionable food. And depending on your diet, you might eat a lot of that. So you start adding all those things up. Cheap corn, other cheap grains, processed corn, corn syrup, all these corn oils. All of these things can contribute tiny percentage points to an acidifying diet, which is really detrimental to your digestive capacity, which then is detrimental to your absorption of minerals and vitamins. So you have this domino effect that happens, this knock-on effect, as the Brits say. So think about that. So this was cool. This was a breakfast. I was just talking about breakfast. There's my ubiquitous hot sauce. I always have hot sauce on some stuff after I've tasted it, after I've eaten it for a while. This was a great breakfast bowl. I got some pico de gallo, and I had there's a tofu scramble that's there, and what else is in here? Some vegan kind of sausage type stuff, which is very ubiquitous. There's hundreds of examples of that. But what I liked was that it was a mix of live food and cooked food. There was the pico de gallo was fresh, delicious. This was in Houston or somewhere in Texas, so that was cool. There's avocado in there. I'll zoom in a bit. You can see some avocado and the vegan sausage. Sorry, folks, on the reflective thing here. I blame Facebook because I can't do screen share. So that was cool, and that's a typical type of thing you see a few times on a tour where they really drill down and they really, hook you up. This was another typical meal. Some pickled jalapenos and carrots, some hummus and some lentil soup. I got some celery to dip into it. Simple food, folks. Simple. I like simple. You can get a nice soup anywhere in America. You go to Greek deli, Italian deli, almost always there's grandma's soup, which is almost always vegetarian. That's another thing I always talk about. The older generations, whether they're from Jamaica, from Ireland, from Italy, from Mexico, from Japan, meat, flesh foods are an expensive thing in cultures, 100 years ago, 50 years ago or something is when things really started becoming cheap and ubiquitous. But you always have those grandmothers from all those cultures. And I'm telling you, I've been all those places I just said, been to Israel, been to Turkey, been fed by a Armenian grandmother, Jamaican grandmother, Trinidadian grandmother, Venezuelan, Argentinian grandmothers, you know, and I'm saying grandmother, but of course, I mean that generation of person. Sometimes they are a grandmother, and it's very interesting. Everyone I just said has a nice vegetable soup somewhere in their, you know, in their thing because you only had enough money for the water coming out of the tap, a cabbage, an onion, whatever little dried spices you had, the herbs growing on your windowsill or in the backyard, a tomato or two from the backyard. To put that piece of meat in there was often prohibitive. They saved that for Friday or the weekend or the dinner rather than the lunch. So you find that there's an economic overlap with plant-based eating. And I've talked about this before, and we've explored that. And we had my wonderful guest from Nigeria, the guy who was a chef and he owned the vegan place in Nigeria, and he's pinpointed that. He said, it's funny in Nigeria now the economy's blowing up, and all his fellow Nigerians are suddenly starting to eat what they shouldn't. A lot more flesh foods, a lot more meat, and this heavy food, fast food, and they're getting sick. And he was kind of like, I'm trying to help with that. So so you always have very easy to find some soups, and that was an example. All right, one or two other ones. Let's see. This was an awesome meal. Where's this one from? This was at a restaurant. Maybe I ate at a restaurant with a colleague just once, I think. Yeah, you know, you just don't get out. And we found this restaurant. No one was there. We went and sat by the window and like no one around because you hardly come out of the COVID bubble on touring right now. And this was delicious. This was at a Vietnamese place, but the Vietnamese take on a red curry. Wow, that was good. It was a spicy eggplant and tofu curry. So you can just see delicious. And I had some edamame on the side there and some little bit of brown rice I had. Again, not a huge rice eater. This was a spectacular meal. You can see the chili peppers, the tomatoes, the sweet peppers, the kind of Asian spinach there. There's a eggplant and a bunch of nice tofu. I'm always trying to remind people trying to eat meatless. Asian food, one of your easy go-tos. Chinese, Japanese, Singaporean, Malaysian, Tibetan food, Indian food, you know, Vietnamese, Japanese. And in China, when you say Chinese food, it's really 25 different, you know, or more, whatever. Many, 20, some that I've heard of, that you have, you know, the different types of food and spices, and they use this and they use that. But almost always in all those foods, they're very rich in vegetables, in legumes, in root vegetables. And then there is pork or chicken or beef. But what's really awesome about Asian food is you just take that one ingredient out more often than not, and you've got a vegetarian dish more often than not. That's what's really awesome. So I love and I gravitate towards Asian foods. When I'm on the road and I do have time to order something to the hotel room or to step out, I Google Thai food. And I love the technology of GPS and all that, where my phone says there's a Thai food place 0.4 miles away. And that's I joke around because that's almost like what the number always is. Any place that you're in a city, if you're out in rural Pennsylvania like I was on this tour in November, the Thai place was 3 miles away, right across the bridge in Jersey, and they delivered to my hotel. So Thai, Chinese, Japanese, all the ones I just listed, if you're new to plant-based and you're like, well, what do I eat? What do I think of? Things you love. Sweet and sour pork. They'll do it as sweet and sour tofu for you. They'll do almost anything with tofu. I haven't been to a Chinese restaurant that doesn't have tofu. It's just a staple, like the rice, like the cornstarch, like the the peas or something, like the chicken breast. It's just a staple. Soy sauce, all these things. Tofu's right there on that Chinese kind of toolbox. So you can almost always, there's a few exceptions, but almost always you speak to the chef, speak to the owner, and say, hey, can you make the item number 3 instead of beef? Can you do tofu? No problem. One of the beautiful things of Chinese, even the most rundown kind of, really, really, dicey looking Chinese place where you go in, it's just a counter, right, and all the food. Even those they're preparing it often fresh. You see the guy, he's got a wok, and he's got all the different things, and puts it together. The rice is pre-cooked, the noodles are pre-cooked. Sometimes the noodles are cooked right away. Of course, the soups and stuff are pre-cooked. But that's what I love about Chinese food is they often put it together, and they often wash the wok with hot water and stuff and put it right back up. So you can also get into the whole thing of I don't want my stuff cooked with the beef or something. So those are some basic things. I'll share one or two other random food stories, but welcome to any questions if you have any. Um, Here's a product that someone found for me on tour. Very great bunch of people I'm surrounded with who there's a few people that are pescatarian or non-gluten. There's someone else allergic to different things. So we have a real careful approach to food where we make sure everyone can get what they need. And everyone's been a lot of respect, a lot of kindness in all directions. So one of my dear colleagues got me this one day and worked with the local runner is what it's called. That's the person who will run errands for you from the club, from the theater. And they found this. I never had these. These were great. This is by Nasoya, a company I've loved for decades. And it's it's tofu with garlic and spices and herbs and stuff. Awesome. Ready to eat. Just throw it on a salad, which is great on the road. 14 grams of protein per serving, which is great in just 3 ounces. Wow, awesome. And so I had this a couple times, just threw it on some salad, and another time on a day off, I just ate them right out of this thing. So, random convenient stuff comes along. I don't eat much bread. I don't make many sandwiches, but I thought, all right, let's document this. Here's a sandwich I made and loved. So I've got my favorite bread when I do have bread, Ezekiel non-flour bread. It's excellent. There's some organic spinach or something. There's those plantables I just said. There's some kind of, it's tofurkey, very high protein, vegan cold cut sort of thing, the purple box. Real high protein those are. I think there's something like 13 grams of protein in a serving. And they're made from wheat gluten and spices and herbs and stuff, black pepper. All very natural stuff. Some Daiya cheese, that's vegan cheese. I eat that once in a blue moon. It's cool. It's kind of like American cheese slices. And some nice mustard. I whipped up a sandwich, and there's some veganese that's not in this picture. And that answers, some people ask, why do you survive? How do you, and that's one of the ways. Here's a plant-based meal I had one day, a lime margarita. So we have a spicy lime margarita there with jalapeno in it. And I don't drink much, but that was a day off, and we thought, let's have a drink out on the beach. This was fun too. This is history. What are you gonna do? We did not see these. That's just like a history thing I was looking at, but sticking with the food and wrapping up with that. Please, let's close with some questions if you have some questions. But just randomly jumping around that life was easy on tour to eat well. And this is a typical thing. This is something I had a number of times and I will have any day of the week. I love what I'm about to show you. A salad and some hummus. Man, I'm in heaven there. That's all you need to do. Bring me a salad and some hummus. That is, and I love a salad like that with some olives and, red onions and, tomatoes. I think I see some pepperoncini in there, and that's it. I'm happy with just those simple fresh greens and some salad or some black beans on the side, or just something really simplistic. I love eating in a great fancy, healthy restaurant, when it can happen, but if it doesn't, it doesn't. This was awesome. A very popular thing are bowls, and they call them bowls now because they're in a bowl, and you but a lot of companies, a lot of places now say, we've got healthy bowls on the menu. So what that means is they might have a half dozen choices of usually some healthy grain or not, and usually 4 or 5 types of vegetables, and then a protein, which might be salmon, it might be organic chicken breast, might be tofu or tempeh if you're lucky. And sure enough, that's something I had a number of times. This was a wonderful one. And this is something you can make at home. Look at that. It's so simple. The green is an avocado, some pickled purple cabbage, some shredded radish right there, the reddish white stuff. Some tofu. I think the grain was quinoa, and then some sprouts and some shredded carrots. Oh, fantastic. What a delicious, wonderful, quick meal. And this is the kind of thing you can throw together in 10 minutes at home, and I do once in a while. Just have some sprouts around, have some shredded vegetables around. Get yourself a shredder. Get one of those things that shreds carrot and cabbage into that form. And then you can just throw it together. You got some baked tofu, or you saute some tempeh or something, and you've got this super high protein, easy meal. And that's what I'm always trying to inspire. Here was a plant-based snack. This was in Florida somewhere, and it's just about a few minutes after dawn. I think it was like 7:15 in the morning, and we were on a day off, which was awesome to be near the water in Florida. And that was my breakfast. I had one of my favorite things, a fresh mango. So that was awesome. Nothing like a fresh mango. I am a mango fanatic. Man, that was a good mango. I can dream about it right now. That was a really good mango. So anyway, that's just some random stuff. I'm just talking about things I carry on the road and things that you can get, and how simple it is. And it always was. I have to say, it's incredible. It's effortless now in the modern world. But I was touring in 1992, and I'll close at that, and it was no problem. And I went to Europe in 2002, and it was no problem. It's about a mindset. It's about empowering yourself. It's about saying, I'm not going to settle for the crap you have here. Bring me something I want. Or where's the nearest grocery, or even just little corner store? Because you find in any country, the corner store is where you can get some oranges or whatever fruit is in season, some apples, avocados if you're lucky. You can always get some cherry tomatoes and some good dark bread and some mustard. And if you eat dairy, some very good cheese. You can get. I find that these are just common things, even around the world, that pop up everywhere. You know, some grape leaves or some peanut butter or something. So it's really easy. Here's another favorite combination: soup and salad, and that was another nice, amazing salad. Notice the theme. I love red onions and cherry tomatoes and stuff, and that was some mixed veggie soup. I don't know, but perfect, easy. I don't want to think about it too much. I don't want to think about it too much. I just want to get it done and have some good, spicy food to check out, and it doesn't have to be spicy, but that's a nice plus. Yeah, this one is I don't know what this was. Some sort of this had the kind of shredded squash as like a pasta on the bottom, and hold on, let me take this phone call. Okay, sorry about that. A robocall from our vet. So sorry about that. Okay, good. So yeah, this was like one of those things where they shred what's it called? Spaghetti squash. You don't have to shred it. It has a spaghetti texture and stuff, and you cook it up. Delicious. So there's some spaghetti squash on the bottom there, and some nice roasted potatoes, and there was broccoli and onions. And look, folks, simplicity. That's all I'm trying to say is that, so simple to just, thinking about Mediterranean, thinking about Asian ideas is I think one of your simple ways into not stressing out about what can I eat? Which we hear that from time to time. All right, I'm going to wrap up with any questions we have. Let's start with YouTube. Um, West Darling, you have a flavor combination for me. Blueberries, basil, lime, ginger, honey, and sesame oil. I love that. No, that's great. And I've had I've kind of had that in smoothies. I've definitely put basil and parsley actually into smoothies because of the high mineral content, the high vitamin C content in parsley. But I've never had this exact combo, but it sounds great. Blueberry, basil. So you got a sweet, savory thing going on there. I love it. And I love sesame oil. I often cook with olive oil and then put a few drops of sesame. I put sesame oil in my soups a lot. I put it when I make hummus from scratch. Anything Asian. Japanese miso soup. I'll put a drop or two. So that's really cool. Thank you for that. Scott Fisher says that a quinoa stuffed pepper. I think the pepper I showed was couscous, which not my favorite go-to grain. I really stay away from wheat most times than not, but it was cool. Couscous is at least kind of a more whole form of it. But we did have stuffed peppers like 3 different times, and one of them I think was quinoa with other stuff. One was like this soy kind of not ground beef even, but just a ground up soy kind of stuff. And another time was rice and vegetables. But yeah, a bunch of quinoa on this tour. You've been dealing the the Renew Life Extra Care Probiotic. There we go. I don't know if you were here before. I just did a whole chapter on probiotics and prebiotics, how important they are. And you saw the couscous answer. Todd Reynolds, just egg. Since I heard that it's just a mung dal, so okay, appropriation. That's a whole long discussion. Don't be sad because people in India appropriate Western ideas all the time. So who cares? I'm really the appropriation thing gets my goat because we're all appropriating. We're all grabbing things. Let's have proper working wages for all people and comprehensive health care for all people. Then we won't be worrying about who's wearing Japanese stuff because the Japanese people are wearing James Dean outfits. Some of them, not all of them, of course, but you go through Japan and there's young men dressed like James Dean. Should they not? Japanese take a lot of American recipes and recontextualize them. So, I'm not jumping on your head. I'm just saying that sometimes we're fed this appropriation thing, and sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Having said that, Just Egg is if it's being appropriated at all, it's also it's mung beans. It's a mung bean thing, and absolutely, it's something that in Chinese food, they do a thing with mung beans where they are mashed and macerated and cooked, and that comes up with a similar kind of a thing. So it's kind of the Brian Eno Scenius thing, right? It's the word scene plus genius, where yes, I'm sure in southern India they've done things with the similar texture, but they were doing it near Beijing at the same time or before, and they were probably doing it in Tibet and maybe in South America or something. So yeah, it's Just Egg is it's mainly mung beans, and they're broken down and processed in a pretty non-invasive way, and you can make Just Egg from scratch. I have a chef friend, Lacey Sher, because she's been on here. I'll say who she is, and she talked about that she's developing her own. So yeah, I hope that people do start just making. See, that's the thing. Let's appropriate it back and let's teach people how to just make Just Eggs on like in your kitchen, because that's what it's about. Empowering people to just go out, buy some mung beans, buy some mung bean sprouts, and start learning that food is just chemistry, it's texture. So, but I'd love more evidence on the appropriation part of where someone at Just Egg, got that. Yes, and you have a TikTok for me. Send me a TikTok. I love it. Just Egg is one of my favorite vegan items, says Scott. Mung bean or not, it's still delicious. That's exactly correct. And okay, I'm just seeing your comments now, Todd. Exactly. We're exactly in agreement, as we generally are. and that I said what I'm seeing now in your comment. Yep, you can make it yourselves for a fraction of the cost, which again, in and of itself, is, you know, we could all do a lot of things from scratch, and we don't. But yeah, Just Egg in a pinch is great. I love getting it on sale. I love that there's another company, I forget the name, so now we're gonna have competition, and Just Egg uh, will be more available. And but yeah, I'd love to learn how to make from scratch. I've made hummus from scratch, but I still buy hummus because sometimes who's got the time? You know, I've made tofu from scratch. Definitely not doing that again. That's the whole day operation. So yeah, we have a variety of things. But you know, I'm an advocate for people making stuff from scratch. We need more of that and more raw materials. Um, Todd saying those on the budget we could do better for stuff. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And you're not being too woke here. That's a good thing. We need to not go for the wokesters, and I think you know that. But we're also, as we have been until these words came along, conscious beings that are trying to be kind, trying to be compassionate, trying to listen, and trying to uphold and respect other cultures that have been stepped on for millennia, right? Under the boot of European imperialism. But there's also been Asian imperialism. So that's where, again, it turns the corner, and we don't talk about that much in the Western world. The Chinese did a whole lot of imperializing. And, you know, there's lots of wars that happen everywhere on Earth. So, very interesting. Um, yeah, you know, it gets into the math of, is Just Egg cheap? We've debated that before. You can make, if you take a container of Just Egg and make the whole thing and serve it to two people, that's two pretty big omelets or frittatas. I challenge you to go to IHOP or Huddle House or Waffle House or anything and get the equivalent size vegetable omelet or something and really look at the math. Yeah, in those places, that's an $8 omelet to start, you know. So I think it's fine. I think it's, you know, how much cheaper do we want it? You know, it's like computers or anything. But again, I'm a Nazi on that stuff. I'm always going to argue when people in the Western world say things aren't cheap because I've been to the third world and I've been to where, yeah, you know, half the day you're worrying about water and showering with a 16-ounce container. And so I'm kind of a prick when people say things are cheap, not cheap, because Just Egg's really cheap. Sorry, it is. What I don't like, and we've agreed about, is I wish there was a liter container so I could have less plastic and less waste. What I love is that I wish they had it in recyclable containers. I don't like the packaging. I dislike a lot of things, and as I said, I love when it's for you know for when it's on sale. Um, you're paying for restaurant service there, sure. And the comparison would be purchasing eggs, exactly. And you'd have to compare it to high quality eggs. But then again, if you're going to include, rightly so, the math of the restaurant service, as good or bad as it might be, when we talk about the cost of eggs, you get into the hidden cost. Because whatever the artificially cheap price of a dozen eggs is, and from what I understand, they've gone up because of inflation, you're paying a massive amount as a taxpayer, as a citizen, for those eggs in your society, in your environment. Whereas paying for, and this is talked about on the Just Egg site quite eloquently, if you're, on the other hand, paying them to have a sustainable, clean, environmental, plant-based product that's regenerative, that's re uh, uh, nutrient remineralizing the soil, that's you know part of something that's not costing you the second time. Eggs cost you a number of times, the time you buy them and then later on in the societal and environmental costs. So there's that penumbra of all this stuff is always there for me, and it is for you too. um Again, you know, if you want to take the restaurant part out, sure, we could now break down other breakfast foods, whether it's waffles or cereal or a couple whole grain bagels and some vegan or not vegan cream cheese, and we can really do a chart. And I'm going to say that the protein value and the simplicity of nutrients and things you're getting from just egg versus some waffles versus some, it's going to win every time because you're getting so much high-end nutrition out of it, including a really good protein source. And protein is your premium food cost. And I love talking about the economics of all this stuff. I'm obsessed with it. I did it for close to 2 decades. And once you really weigh the cost of the protein in your daily diet, your weekly diet, that's when it starts getting interesting. And so a premium source of protein is worth so much more than the bowl of cornflakes because, so that's dirt cheap. It's going to be more because you're getting premium protein. So it's, I'm just saying we need to look at language and what we put out. We need to instead be showing people that we have the cheapest food almost on the planet in America. And it's the first thing Americans say when I'm with them and we go somewhere else. I noticed this for 20 years now. We're in Germany, we're in Iceland, we're in, whatever, Netherlands, Japan. Those are the special places that you see this. Not so much when you go to Argentina or Peru or something because we tend to be eating at a simpler, smaller place. But almost always, wow, food's so expensive here. And I always say it's actually closer to the true cost. That's all. Back home, it's subsidized, right? It's fucked up. It's all a bunch of complicated formulas about loss leaders and about what they're pricing eggs and milk and bread, and then the other things move around it. So there's a lot of interesting stuff, and I love talking about it. As you know, we talk about it all the time. But one of the things that I seek to do is get people to realize how illusory food prices are in the USA, how much subsidization that we're doing of the egg industry, the chicken industry, the dairy industry. So that's another sidebar. Sometimes people say, oh, this vegan cream cheese, it's so expensive. It's actually not. It's just what it costs to make it plus a profit margin. But since you're comparing it to wholly subsidized dairy industry products, you think it's more expensive. No, you're paying for this fucked up dairy industry to just sit and pour milk into every item, first of all, but to make Titanics full of cheese that are just stored away and that are given away in times of hunger and all this. We're subsidizing this horrific dairy industry, creating the illusion of small price, right? It's dirt cheap. Milk is kind of dirt cheap. It's gone up a bit with inflation. But cheese and milk products and cream cheese and cottage cheese and cream and that crap is dirt cheap on a global pricing scale. So that when you have some cashew cheese, it's like, holy shit, $7? But I get it, and I don't buy that stuff often, especially that there's a luxury tax on some of that, especially in Whole Foods. That's a whole other discussion. But even buying some right from the person at a farm market, some kind of almond-based cheese or cashew-based cheese, it's going to be more for those 8 ounces because you're actually paying real prices for it, and you're not paying this incredibly artificial subsidized. So anyway, love that discussion, and I love talking about what our food really costs, the hidden costs and things like that. Vegan foods also, we always talk about that. All good points. Certainly not going to buy. Great, and of course, I wasn't hearing you saying that you would stop because of cost, nor would I advocate that. But bottom line is people that like eggs, but they want to get away from them and they want something that's got a really good nutritional profile. Choice A, go find Just Egg and wait for it to be on sale. I get coupons thrown at me all the time from the receipt machine because they know I buy it, all the algorithms. Look for it on sale. There's a competing product that's an egg substitute that's natural and vegan. And number 3, as Todd Reynolds so wisely points out, just look around and Google. There's ways to make these things, these egg-like stuff from chickpeas, from mung beans, from mung sprouts, from the different variety of dal, lentils, legumes from India. No one culture came up with this idea, as you know, and as I've shared here. In the 1300s, they were doing almond milk in Europe, and I'm sure other places. And the Aztecs had things that were like nut milks, and the Africans had nut milks and peanut milks. So what goes around comes around. What's awesome keeps coming back around, and I love it. And I'll close with that. It's been great hanging with y'all. Just talking about food. I really kept it, all I'll say is my heart goes out to the people in Ukraine. How about that? We didn't talk about the nasty politics and well, that's all I'll say, because then I'll end up talking about it. But I'm happy that today was about food, music. I had a wonderful month with my colleagues and my boss. This guy who plays the guitar, Pat Metheny. And I don't even call him a jazz guitarist. He's called that typically, but he, as I've known for years as a fan, he's a composer. He's a creative spirit. He's a big thinker who happens to operate a guitar. That's kind of it, because wow, the stuff he's done with Steve Reich's music and with John Zorn's music. It is nothing to do with jazz, quote unquote, unless you are very expansive in your definition of jazz, which I am. But his stuff is all over the place. There's Cambodian music and, all manner of the jazz history that he's brought to the forefront. And to be checking that out up close and to be part of the team. It's a real team. Everyone on board. I'm so honored and grateful to be part of that. In this journey of being honored and grateful to be part of so many amazing musical ventures, whether it's 10 Years After or Derek Trucks or the band Mo or Eddie Jobson or Pat Gleason or Yes and all the Zappa alumni guys. I really do. I live in gratitude, and I live in gratitude for you folks, some of whom I know personally and who come here to talk about stuff and to support me doing this crazy stuff. So it's good to be back for a little while after a month out on the road, and I love it. Love living in a bus. Love waking up going, what city are we in? That's one of my favorite things. You get to this weird stasis. It's kind of like making food where you can just get the balance right. And it's, I've got all the right things in this soup. But you get to a moment on tour, a number of times you're lucky, and it happened to me just 2 days ago, which is pretty late in the tour. And I got off the bus and I was walking to the hotel around the corner and I said, where are we? Where are we? I think, let's see, let me think. It's Texas. It's definitely Texas. Because for a minute you just go, is it New York? Are we in the United States? And you really don't know. Because all you're doing is getting off a bus, having that truck be unloaded by the locals, setting your shit up, testing it all, having a couple meals, testing it again, doing the show, tear the stuff down, put it back in the boxes, have the local crew put it in the truck, shut the truck, have a shower, get on the bus. Then you wake up again in 6 hours, sometimes 8 hours if you're lucky. Go in the venue and do everything all over again. So it's great, and it's insane at the same time. So Sabine is saying, yeah, Ukraine is all around, it affects your daily life security. Yeah, my heart just goes out to, I know, different world in Europe. Yes, it's one of the most dramatic and large-scale operations since World War II. And I urge everyone to pay attention, to read about it from all sides. Not that there's like a good side, you know what I'm saying? I'm saying learn the history, learn Ukraine. Ukraine's a massive country. It's something like if you took Poland and Germany, put them together. Ukraine's a massive country that people tend to just not understand how significant what's going on. But learn some history. Learn about the wacky perspective of a Putin and his view of Stalin and Lenin and how he's approaching this with thoughts of World War II and what they didn't get right and the Soviet Union. So there's a lot of interesting moving parts to learn, and we've sent more American troops there. We have, I think last I checked, around 100,000 U.S. troops. And another thing people should look at is the Ukrainian army is huge. I think I just was reading Time magazine or something the other day, and 140,000 troops, somewhere around there, on the order of that, and they're obviously increasing. And I was surprised that I think the Russian army is like, it's bigger than that, but not by a factor of 10, like you might have thought. It's maybe something like twice as many or a little more than twice, which is surprising to me. Russia definitely has the superior army, but they got a lot going on in Ukraine, and the Russians are finding this out over this few days. I hope there's a ceasefire. I mean, Putin is not well mentally, obviously. We've known that, though, for ages. He's a dictator. He's a despot. And responsible Americans are all lined up to say, yeah, this guy's a mess. To watch former leaders and to watch apparatchiks at Fox say, well, he's not that bad, is just alarming. But again, different topic for a different stream. I will log off at this point. How do I do that? Here we go. And it's been great. Let me figure out how to stop streaming. Somewhere in here there's a Facebook studio, and I can find it. All right, folks. See you soon.